Welcome, welcome, one and all, to yet another episode of WIC TV, a cross-ideological space where we come together to talk about issues both political and cultural, from the silly to the serious. And gang, today we have a show for you. We're joined by some great guests to discuss a very simple topic. Which political party in America is better for minorities? I'm going to give the mic to each of these lovely individuals to introduce themselves and kind of, they can tell you their initial thoughts. If you, dear viewers, at any point want to go and subscribe to any of their channels, I have put links to their stuff in my YouTube description, and I encourage you to do so. But for now, let's get started. I'm going to hand the mic first to Hunter Dunn. Go ahead. Start us off. Open us up.
Oh, you muted my brother.
You're muted on your end.
Hey, false starts, right? Just getting into the football mode
It's all good.
we
It's going to loosen up a little bit, right?
Hi, I'm Hunter Dunn, and I'm going to be honest, I'm a little bit baffled that the other side agreed to this debate, given that's about which party is better at protecting minority rights. We have one political party that, to be honest, at best, is decent to apathetic on the issue. But on the other side, we have another party, another side of the aisle, that is actively engaging in attacks on basic human rights, whether we're talking about constitutional violations for all people, but especially targeting minorities, or we're talking about even disagreeing on whether or not we should protect interracial marriage at the federal level. So I think what we're looking at here is a bit of a hydrogen bomb versus a coughing baby situation, but I am excited to get into potentially different definitions of what minority rights are and see if there's any places that we can come together, not just disagree. So thank you for having us on.
Okay, well, thanks for being here, and we'll get into it as we go. Next up, Tashika, please go ahead. Introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Tashika. I'm 24 years old. I wrote out a little bit of an opening statement, if that's okay to read here.
Go for it.
In the past century, the only party that has pushed for and legally adopted the rights for minorities has been the Democratic Party, whether that be disability rights, civil rights, marriage equality, body autonomy, and decriminalization of identity. The Republican Party has been a consistent threat to minorities for the past century by removing and criminalizing openly gay people during the Lavender Scare, overturning Roe v. Wade, through the Dobbs decision, consistently criminalizing and empowering individuals to privately attack transgender people, refusing to lift the sub-minimum wage of disabled people, and rollbacks on the Black family by taking away their welfare and mass incarceration through targeted criminalization. I'm looking forward to hearing different perspectives from the other side today and how they plan to circumvent reality and history.
Okay, well, thank you for being here. We'll get into it as we go. Mr. Rippey, please.
Yeah, well, we'll start with my favorite one, just at a foundational level.
Hold on. Mr. Rippey?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought Rifty. I am not Rippey.
You are not Mr. Rippey. Go ahead, Mr. Rippey. Go ahead.
Yeah, people can tell the difference, but basically, Black voters shouldn't have to accept just what the party says. Over the past 6 years, I'm overwhelmingly voting Democrat, and we should look at where Black America is today. 85% of Black Americans vote for a specific party, and nothing has gotten better. If anything, it's gotten actually worse. Instead of repeating talking points, actually go by facts and data and what reality is. So I'm not going to repeat the talking point like they're taking away Black rights and rolling back certain things. I'm going to actually talk about the data, talk about the facts, and talk about reality instead of talking points that the Democrats push on the Black community to get emotional voters to continue to keep them in office, to keep the Black people disenfranchised.
Okay, well, we're excited to have you. We'll see where it goes. Stream Rift, now it's your turn. Go ahead.
Excellent. Well, I'm going to start right at some basics, right? We got the basics of free speech. That's important. The basics of guns. And armed minorities are harder to oppress. So the Republicans want firearms to be generally and broadly accessible, and it is Democrats that want to put restrictions on who can have the protection of the gun. So at a very basic, just can I sleep some more peacefully at night? Republicans say that should be something you're allowed to decide how you're going to protect yourself. I'll also point to some of the government's interaction with minorities has included, and I'm sad to say, that, and Mr. Rippey knows about this in more detail than I do, so I'll defer to him on this as it comes up. But the keep no father in the home policies really destroyed the black family, and that destroyed the core of that group. And so whites are the global minority. We're going to say blacks are the minority in this country, and that's fine. But just to be clear on our definitions about what a minority is, I'm going to pick on my opposition here a little bit for trying to do a sleight of hand. This happens a lot, Mr. Rippey, and I have to deal with this a lot. It sounds like you're trying to smuggle bodily autonomy in here, which is a very interesting way of talking about abortion. But if we're talking about a minority, I think women are roughly 50-50. So I think you're trying to push the disadvantage Olympics to the point where now you think women are a minority. It's about 50-50. They're not a minority. I'm sure you're not going to be bringing up things like that anymore.
Okay. Well, with that, we'll open it up. Go ahead. If I stop you, please respect my moderation. But other than that, floor is open. Go ahead. Anyone want to go first? Okay.
Well, the first.
Go ahead.
Sorry, love. So the first thing I would definitely like to bring up is ask, like, Mr. Rippey, you said that Black people have been voting overwhelmingly Democrats for a very, very long time, and you say that there are particular promises that Democrats have given to Black people that they have not been able to, make come to fruition. Can you tell me what exactly those would be for you, so we can get like a baseline of what your stance is?
I don't think that's what I said, though.
Is that not what you said? Can you restate that, please?
Okay, so what I said was that they just repeat talking points to keep Black people dependent on them. So government dependency is never a good thing. Okay, the Republican Party focus more on entrepreneurship, ownership, instead of being dependent on a specific party. We don't want a welfare check. We want to make our own money. And I'm for the party that's for capitalism, because it was actually the Republican Party that helped the Black people that actually helped found the Republican Party. And we go through the history of the Republican Party when we're actually thriving, where we actually built so many amazing things. We own banks, we own bus companies, we own mortgage companies. We did so many great things under the ideas of what the Republican Party represent. Meanwhile, ever since we started voting Democrat, what exactly what Stringwood was just talking about, the kick the father out of the home, making the single mother married to the government. That actually destroyed the Black nuclear family. When you destroy the Black nuclear family, that takes down a thriving society, because we were thriving prior to the Civil Rights Act. And it was the Democrats that voted against and filibustered the Civil Rights Act in 1964, and Republicans voted for it.
So I'm really amused by some of the claims that you're making here. Obviously, I would agree that when it comes to the early Republican Party, which was much more progressive, that they did some great work for civil rights. Like Abraham Lincoln, who also passed the Revenue Act of 1862, which introduced progressive taxation to the federal income tax, also introduced the income tax, and created an inheritance tax, which we all know Republicans love the death tax. It's not like Republicans used to be the party of big government and civil rights and then abandoned it to embrace the Southern strategy, as shown by Richard Nixon on tapes discussing it, using the hard R. And at the same time, when we talk about the Civil Rights Act, and more importantly, the Voting Rights Act, which president did that pass under? Oh, right, Lyndon B. Johnson, a Democrat. When it comes to specifically the registration in Southern red states, after the Voting Rights Act was passed, we saw an increase in Black registration from 11% to 51% in Alabama, and in Tennessee from 27% to close to 70%. And this stayed until Shelby County in 2013. The Supreme Court overturned some parts of the Voting Rights Act in 2013, which continued in 2026 with the Louisiana versus Clace decision. Now in pre-clearance counties, voter purges went from 6.8% to 8.9%, specifically in pre-clearance counties. And do you want to know how many of them are Republican? Over 90% of pre-clearance counties vote Republican, and there is a reason for that. The reason for that is because a competent federal government would actually step up and defend the rights of BIPOC people from attacks by the Republican Party specifically. When we see voter purges and voter suppression,
what's your like one sentence on the argument you're making here? I'm trying to listen to you, but you seem to be.
Let him finish, and then you can respond. I promise. Go ahead.
Yeah. I'm just saying, straightforwardly, I don't think you want to take credit for any sort of pre-civil rights area Republican actions for civil rights, because if you do, I assume you're also in favor of progressive taxation and other progressive policies the then progressive Republican Party took. And when it comes to the actual modern day, when the people who are currently alive were alive back then, it's very clear which side has been consistently on the side of civil rights, and it's the same side the whole time, the progressive side. It's just they're Democrats now instead of Republicans.
Go ahead.
All right, now I repeated all these repeated talking points like I talk about all the time. You talk about Richard Nixon, but when you fail to realize Richard Nixon is actually using it as a strategy, but he actually lost the Deep South to George Wallace, who was a Democrat, but he ran as an independent. Now, when it comes down to the Civil Rights Act that actually being passed, the very first Civil Rights Act was actually passed by a Republican. It's authored and passed by a Republican. You know who that Republican is? I know you don't. It's okay. His name is Dwight D. Eisenhower.
Hold on. Let Mr. Rippey finish.
Let you finish. So, 1957, a president by the name of Dwight D. Eisenhower, Little Rock, Arkansas, passed the first Civil Rights Act. Now, when I say the majority of Republicans voted for the Civil Rights Act and the Democrats voted against it, it's because that was the longest filibuster still to this day. And Lyndon B. Johnson was actually forced to sign the Civil Rights Act. That's the reason why you put the Great Society Act in place, which means that he said that the black people would be voting. He actually used a different word than that. And he was known to use the N-word a lot, would be voting Democrat for the next 200 years. Not only that, every single Democrat I voted, out of 21 Democrats I voted against the Civil Rights Act, 20 of them remained Democrats until they died off. With the exception of Storm Thurmond, he was the only person that switched parties. Now, you went through a lot. That's the reason why when people talk in paragraphs.
Hold on.
Some of these things.
You're being misleading with your facts here. How many Democrats voted for that act compared to how many voted against it? Did the majority of Democrats vote for or against that act? I don't think you know.
Well, no.
I have the numbers right in front of me. 118 Democrats in the House voted for it.
Why are you cutting him off, man? No, straight up. Seriously, he's got a little.
Okay. Everyone's talking over each other. It's hard to hear. The audios are getting.
I'll let him continue, but I just want to correct the facts for the record.
Wait, hold on, wait. Calm yourself, Iago. So basically, the third time they voted, it was 80-60. So 60% of Democrats versus 80% of Republicans. But the first few times, I voted on 3 different times. Okay, the first time only 33% of Democrats voted for it. Do you have those numbers?
I have the final passage numbers right in front of me, which you still haven't been able to produce.
I just produced. I said the third time, the final time, 80-60.
Okay,
I just said it.
Hold on. I do want to give.
If you're asking a question, are you talking about the Anderson-Aiken amendment version of it, or which vote are you referring to specifically for the first vote?
What the first vote on the
because it actually passed by a larger margin of Democrats with the original first passage vote in June 18th, 1957, 286 to 126. It passed with a lower margin in August 27th, 1957.
Yeah, just real quick.
Go ahead, Spencer.
Just real quick. I do want to just real quick. I want to give the mic to Tashika, who's been trying to get in here, and I want to give it to Streamer, who's also been trying to get in here, right? And also, if I may, I would like to maybe talk about more modern.
That's exactly what I was going to say, Wick. I can grant Mr. Rippey everything that he's saying about like past Republicans and whether or not they were more progressive than Democrats. I don't give a shit. You know what I mean? Like, the point is that as it stands, that Democrats are better for minorities now, and Republicans have always been the adversarial party, right? I think that's important for us to debate right now. I can grant you anything you want to say about the past. Well, not anything, but within reason.
Well, I mean,
so part of a conversation about that. Can we have a conversation about the current administration, something like that? The rollback of Roe v. Wade.
We can talk about school choice, capitalism, ownership versus dependency. We can talk about all these things and figure out which party is actually better for the minorities. And we all know that when it comes down to the facts and statistics and data, it tends to show that the Republican Party is better. But go ahead, I want to hear. No, I want to hear. I want to hear you.
Yeah, well, so let's take a look at Trump real quick here. I'm willing to bet you guys don't like Trump. Trump's terrible. He's against. But we had this June 2020 reform that 91%. What does it say? 81% of Black Americans wanted police presence kept the same. But Republicans are supporting law enforcement. Democrats aren't supporting law enforcement. So why is it that Democrats don't want Blacks in their communities to have proper law enforcement? Mr. Rippey, do you know why they wouldn't want this? It's confusing to me.
I don't know, because that is what they want. Is what we want. We want safe neighborhoods. We want people to be able to walk around in the streets. Right now, people don't feel safe in the Black community, and we want more We actually support the law enforcement,
Okay.
despite what the mainstream narrative is.
Sure. I want to give Tashika a chance to respond to that. So their argument here is that Republicans tend to support law enforcement more than Democrats, and therefore Republicans keep Black communities safer. Therefore, they're better for minorities. Would you like to respond to that?
Unfortunately, his mic is coming in a little bit weird for me. Can you restate the last part of your argument? Because the way you talk is very jumbled. Can you restate the last part of your argument, Rippy?
Oh, you're talking. I'm sorry. I thought you were talking
Right.
to Screen Real.
Right.
No, but basically, I was just saying that we do support law enforcement. We don't want crime in
Okay.
our streets going rampant. So that's what I'm saying.
Okay, so I'm confused as to what I'm supposed to argue here, right? Like about like police officers. I don't think it's a problem that Black people support police officers. I don't have a problem with police officers. I think all of us here know the stats regarding like police brutality and the fact that Black people are more likely to be arrested. I don't think anyone here would disagree with that. If you do, I guess we can have that conversation later. But what is I don't have an actual contention with that. So what do you want me to say?
So if you agree that more law enforcement makes communities safer, and that Republicans
Okay,
support
I don't
more
know if I
law
would
enforcement,
say.
then
I
they're
don't know if I
probably
would
better
say
for
that.
minorities that want to be protected by law enforcement. That's what it sounds like you completely agree with, but
What do you mean
don't
by
want to.
protected by law enforcement?
I'm going to ask you to explain what part of it you think is confusing. I think it's a fairly obvious.
I'm asking you what you mean by this. Can you elaborate, please?
You're gonna get a really specific answer. We'll call it cops
what I'm asking
responding
you
to
for.
911 calls and patrolling neighborhoods. It's sufficient to deter crime and respond when necessary.
Right. So then what is required for them to be able to do this?
Well, what is funding for one, and some support from community? I'm not sure where you're going here.
Right. So I would just be confused though when you say this, right? When you're talking about Republicans supporting police officers and them being able to do their jobs, because is it or is it not the case that in his first term, Donald Trump proposed cuts for police officers? Didn't he call for defunding the police? I don't understand why you guys keep saying this.
Well, so right now you're stuck in Trump is the only political thing to talk about instead of Republican
say
versus
that.
Democrat.
I didn't say that. I would
So,
appreciate you actually
moving
responding to
past
what I
that,
said specifically, though.
moving
Why would I
past
need
that,
to
you
move
can
past
only
that?
see it through the world of Trump politics versus actual Republican values.
No. But that is the
Republicans
leader
are
of
the ones.
is that not the leader of the Republican Party right now? Was
Delusional.
not the
That is not the
president?
leader of the Republican
Can you
Party. The
respond to- can you
Republicans
just
are not as
can you go ahead
monolithic.
and
I've been trying to answer, and you've been
appreciate
cutting
you
me off.
responding. Yeah, go ahead.
And so,
please.
if
As
you'd
long as
like
you
to
actually
restate
respond.
what specific it is that you'd like me to respond to, I'll start with just that.
Right. The fact that Donald Trump repeatedly proposed cuts to the funding that we give to police officers across the country. Right. So can you please provide me why that would be the case if it is the case that Republicans are pro law enforcement? Right. Like
So if you see a
I'm
thin blue
wondering why you
flag,
think-
does that scream to you Republican or Democrat? When you see
I'm
a
sorry.
sign that says
Is he
defund the
answering
police,
the question?
does it sound like a leftist or does it sound like a conservative?
So just
Hunter,
so we can get the conversation kind of going here and flowing here, the question seems to be, did or did not President Trump, cut funding for law enforcement? Is that true or untrue? What do you think, Streamer?
So my understanding is there may have been an allocation from law enforcement towards ICE to help support ICE to help combat the problems that law enforcement's facing. I think you'd be hard pressed to find anything other than support of law enforcement from Trump. So it sounds like what you're saying is the leftist protesters burning police stations to the ground, the pepper spraying police, the literally burning cop cars to the ground. That's not a strong signal of budgetary decision you think is more indicative. Is that roughly accurate?
Okay, all the Democrat politicians saying defund the police.
So again,
when it comes to Democratic. Oh, Tashika, you want to go or I can go?
One of the two of you. Okay.
No, you can go. I was just going to say, like, I don't know why I'm expected to answer in the case of Donald Trump literally proposing these cuts, like multi-million-dollar cuts from police officers, of which I assume that you just conceded to here. Why I'm suddenly supposed to answer to like a bunch of protesters doing like terrible things and committing crimes, right? If it was the case that you actually one second, baby.
Let her finish.
If it were the case that you actually gave a shit about these things, you wouldn't be in support of him calling for these cuts. And again, Donald Trump is the leader of the Republican Party, right? I think if we're going to talk about Republicans or Democrats, we want to talk about the leaders of these parties at the top, and then we can go down. But you just straight up denying that doesn't make any sense, right? I don't think that's going to get us anywhere. I think it would really help for you to be honest here.
Okay, you can respond, streamer. Go ahead.
Thank you. So part of what's infuriating about interacting with individuals like you is you assume just because you view the world through a certain lens, that that's how other people view it. You view it as if, as you've described, we have King Trump and all Republicans listen to him and support him, and that's roughly the shape of things. And you can't distinguish between the conflict that Trump, for example, has with his own appointees, his own appointed judges and decisions that they've made. If he was truly this all-consuming power, he'd be able to get a lot more done than he's been getting done.
I want to let you know
you
right
also
now
make an awful lot of. You also make a lot of.
Let him finish. So yeah, go ahead, streamer. Finish.
You also are just stuck on this axis of let's just ignore the facts. We're arguing for a side. It doesn't matter what the facts are. Simply put, to go back to an earlier question you had said, why should you just address the protesters? Because everybody fucking knows about it. The existence of leftist protesters, the defund the police coming from politicians, that is not some 4chan conspiracy knowledge. That's a thing that's out there. So that's why if you're a serious person, which I don't believe you are, it's worth addressing.
My thing is this, right? Why am I again, am I supposed to hold like protesters like civilians on the same level as the president of the United States? Why am I expected to answer for those people if they committed? One second. If they oh, sorry, Hunter, I didn't know that was you. If they committed a crime, then they should be arrested. But Donald Trump actively makes that hard when he cuts police funding, right? Like, I don't know why why are you running from that question so hard? I don't think we're going to be able to have like an honest conversation if you can't even address the leader of the Republican Party. We can move on if you want to move on, right? But I can just take that one as a win. But I don't have to tell you.
I want to let Hunter. He's been trying to get in here, but I'll give it to you in a second, Mr. Trippy. But I want to hear from Hunter, and then you can respond to both of them. Hunter, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to bring us back to the actual facts of the matter, right? When we're talking about violence with protesters, the Federal Judicial Center has recorded how many criminal charges have been brought against protesters, specifically those accused of attacking or impeding federal officers during a protest. There are 851 people. The percent of those cases have been dismissed is above 31%, in some cases as high to 50% in certain jurisdictions. The number of federal cases that typically end in dismissal is closer to 8%. It is 4 times more likely for a case to be dropped due to prosecutorial misconduct or lack of evidence compared to almost any other crime that the federal government goes after. The reason for this is because our current government is ran by a bunch of far-right snowflakes who don't actually know what they're talking about. When it comes to Democratic versus Republican politics on policing, anyone know how much Biden cut police funding by? Anyone know a number? In his 4 years, how much he decreased police funding by? He increased it by $37 billion, increasing funding for over 100,000 additional police officers in over 400 communities. I actually think he went far too far with that because, as we know, over-policing actually leads to more crime. For example, despite unprecedented funding levels, clearance rates, which is the share of crimes police solve by making an arrest, have gone from 41% in 1990 to just 13.7% in 2023. Sorry, they dropped by 41%, went from 22.3 to 13.7. Fewer officers, they say that fewer officers on the street is to blame, but actually we have more law enforcement now than we did back then, while crime has gone down to record lows. At the same time as even in blue states, crime has dropped by 45%. Yeah. These sworn officers went from making 32.8 arrests per year down to 22.8 arrests per year. My favorite example of this is in New York City when cops went on strike, crime went down. Over-policing does not actually lead to less crime happening in a community. It tends to lead to more crime because it escalates tensions within a community, makes people distrust each other, which leads to worse social outcomes. Generally speaking, you would want to invest more money in social services than into policing, but you're also just simply wrong on the facts.
Yeah, we got to let him respond to that. Okay, Mr. Rippey, go ahead, please.
Go ahead.
Okay. All right. So, do you know why the Washington D.C. police commander was suspended a few months ago?
I actually have not heard about that. Please explain.
Oh yeah. So basically they were suspended for changing the crime stats. So we look at these crime stats. We have to stop looking at a headline and just repeating. It's like I just said, repeating talking points once again and go deeper into detail. What they're not including is a lot of crime that take place that they don't include. Like armed robbery was taken off that list. Assault assault and battery was taken off that list. So when they say the crime has actually dropped, it's because they're misconstruing the numbers. And that's happening in Washington, D.C. It's been proven to happen in Philadelphia, and it's proven to happen in Detroit, and it's proven to happen in Chicago. These numbers are false. Even when Donald Trump says crime is at an all-time low, because since he's been in office, I'm calling him out on that too. It's really looking to the numbers.
Hold on. Isn't Trump's currently the president, right? Which means that because the federal government overrides local enforcement when it comes to Washington, D.C., home rule is not consistently maintained. So you're arguing that under Trump, there's fudging numbers to make it look like crime's lower than it actually is. How does that back up your argument that
No.
Republicans are better at minority rights, more specifically policing, right? Because the MPD is essentially under direct control of the president because home rule is quite easily overruled, especially when the National Guard is called in. So you're trying to argue that crime is continuing to surge after the MPD commander-in-chief got dismissed back in May 6th of 2026 after the occupation of DC by the National Guard. If anything, it sounds like the introduction of the National Guard to DC is making crime worse.
Wow. Basically, what you're doing is you take my words, you're flipping it. I'm countering what you're saying. You're saying the crime has actually dropped some of these blue cities, and I'm saying that these blue cities has misstated these numbers. So even when Donald Trump says that the crime has went down, I'm still suspect on that too, because I need to check all the numbers. I'm saying don't just make a statement and then run with it. Actually look into these numbers, even if it is Donald Trump, who's a person that I support strongly. I need to look into these numbers. But when you say that the crime has actually dropped a lot, you're not actually looking at the reason why they say the crime dropped a lot, because these people are actually being investigated for misstating these numbers, misrepresenting people. And that's what I'm saying. All you're doing is repeating the fact.
I'm sorry. You're telling me this person, they were fired or they resigned or they were suspended?
They were suspended.
They were suspended based off of what?
They were suspended based off of misstating, misrepresenting the numbers when it comes down to crime. They did an investigation, and what they found is that crimes like battery, crimes like assault and battery, and crimes like armed robbery was not included on that list to make the numbers look like it's actually a lot lower. So when I say that, I should be
questioning this because because I'm confused here, because what I'm reading here is that let me see. Hold on. Like there's evidence of proven intentional fraud here?
Yeah. Here's an article from Metropolitan DC Police Department. You can Google this. Here's an article right here for you. So look up that. But it's not just happening in DC. It happened all over. They misstate these numbers and misrepresent the public with this stuff. But when I say we should caution Trump when he says it too, I'm just holding everybody accountable, which is something that the left tend to run from.
So, if I'm reading correctly, if this is a correct story, apparently in DC, 13 high-ranking officials were placed on administrative leave and began termination proceedings following an internal investigation into alleged manipulation and downgrading of crime statistics to make the city appear more safe. Is that what you're referring to here?
Yep, and it's also happened in Philly and Detroit.
You are aware that the reason why missing data is it's all downwind from COVID, right? When you go from 2020 to 2021,
that's a strange pivot.
Data for crimes. Yeah, actually, no, I'm just clarifying here because the numbers actually here are very important and interesting. And I would agree that we need more transparency and more direct oversight on police to make sure that they're reporting things accurately. But when it went from an additional 35% of police departments weren't properly reporting crime in 2021 compared to 2020 in previous years. When you look at all the other stats, for example, 1990 to 2019, when the vast majority of police departments were accurately reporting their data, it went from a violent crime rate of roughly 730 offenders per 100,000 people down to, and let me make sure my number is correct here, closer to 366 offenders per 100,000 people. That is about half. So crime has consistently gone down, unless you're arguing that somehow things have changed and outside looks exactly like Punisher: The Last Kill. It's incredibly unlikely that the crime rates have especially spiked over the past several years, which would again be downwind of specifically post-COVID, which again happened under Donald Trump, and the current administration with the rising prices, making it more likely that people might, for example, try to steal something during
So
the
let's say-
Iran war. But again, whose responsibility?
Oh,
Can I-
Iran war now.
Can I
We've
just
done
cut it
COVID. We've done Iran
Oh,
Okay,
war.
okay, you're all trying. Hold on. All of you are trying to talk it around once. Stream Rift, I believe you were first. Go ahead.
Yeah, please go.
Yeah,
This is silly.
just you're so lost on the plot. We're here to talk about a specific thing. We're talking about Iran. We're talking about COVID. Or pretty soon we can talk about Pizzagate. We can talk about Gamergate. We can talk about Tumblr. Or interesting
better-
thought, the First Step Act. Maybe we could look at that. Since we're here to figure out if Republicans are better for minorities or not, do you think the First Step Act that retroactively acknowledged racism in sentencing that I believe averaged about 6 years off of each sentence, isn't it pretty good for a minority, Mr. Rippey, if prison sentences get retroactively fixed? Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I
for
thought we weren't supposed to
minority.
be pivoting here. I'm sorry.
Well, we talked about crime and people that's been put in prison. You talked about the police, over police, and things like that. So to answer your question, yes, consider the fact that these crime bills that the Democrats actually written up, which I'm not knocking it, but it took Donald Trump to create the First Step Act, which actually released tens of thousands of unfairly incarcerated Black and brown people that was put in place by these crime bills that was created by Bill Clinton and the 101 bill in 1986 and 94 crime bill by Bill Clinton and Joe Biden actually wrote that. And to hold the leader of the Democrat Party responsible, he actually apologized for it and said that was a mistake. He never should have done it because he didn't realize it was going to cause a major effect on Black people. But he did that after Donald Trump already passed the First Step Act. How sick are these people? Just repeat this stuff just to get the Black vote.
Okay, so I think, with all due respect, you're kind of pissing me off here because I feel like you guys are like playing in my face.
Okay.
The first part of this conversation where you're talking about this person being suspended, right? I don't know why you just straight up lied here. Okay, the reason I was silent for so long is because I was looking for sources, and there is no confirmation that there was genuine fraud going on. The issue, you could say, is that the numbers were not accurate enough, right? But you saying that they purposely smudge these numbers to make things look better than what they are, I need you to provide a better source for that right now.
Yeah, you've been looking for it. How can I find it?
I'm
You
looking
need
at
to go for
AP
a past-
News and no one is saying
listen to it.
this.
What you're looking at as a silly internet article. You can look at this stuff for yourself. You can see the crimes that's been taken off.
Associated Press is fucking silly.
Associated Press? Is that what you just said?
Guys, we dead ass.
You just said Associated Press?
Yeah, you said Associated Press. Can you provide me some actual evidence here, right, that says that there was intentional fraud going on? Can you do that for me, please? Before we continue this conversation, I don't know why Streamrip tried to, like, you know what I mean, tried to move on, but I really want to get you on this point here.
If you
because
DM
I think we need to establish a
me
level
the
of truth.
source, I can share it on the screen. How's that?
And please DM an actual government source. Not
Also,
Associated
while we're
Press.
at it, did you mention the First Step Act specifically?
Yes.
Well, hold on. Before you go that way,
No.
right? Just so
But,
so.
our
hold on.
friend had
before we
another
do-
thing we were
before
talking.
we do that, if Mr.
Okay.
Rippey or StreamRift wants to send me the source, I can put it on screen. How's that? Okay. There you go.
You just read it, didn't you? What did you
I
find?
don't know. Is your source more accurate than the Associated Press that has like some of the highest fact checking? Like, what's... I don't know.
According to who?
I don't know.
Associated Press. According to
Yeah.
Associated Press.
I mean,
It's
unless you can
X.
disprove it, I don't really give a shit what you think about the AP. Okay,
I
so
mean,
can
how
you
is NBC4, NBC Washington? Is that enough for you, or do you have some other particular thing that you want here? Because this is a part of what you. This is a part of what you shit leftists do. Is you demand an absurd standard, and even if it's met, you won't acknowledge it. I'm gonna send Wick. NBC4. Most people seem to think maybe that's okay for them to report on local news. Don't know how you feel about it.
Right, baby. So unless they're reporting from an entirely different investigation and an entirely different report, because it says right here that the report did not indicate any fraud or intentionality in the flaws of the crime stats. So unless you are looking at a completely different investigation from the Attorney General, anyone? You're not gonna be able to say that it was wrong, okay? Yeah, we love sucking over here, but like, you a little bit more than I.
Wow. Okay. Okay.
Cool.
So
Cool.
Stream Rift has provided me an article. I will share it on screen.
Associated Press is crazy.
Mr. Rippey, isn't it kind of wild she's here defending the government?
It makes no sense to me. Like, this is what happens when you look at biased sources. I don't repeat things from Associated Press, CNN, Fox News, none of this stuff. Okay, only go directly to the government sites. That's all I'm saying.
So this happened on the July 18th, 2025.
This isn't a government site.
DC police
You do
commander
realize this isn't a government
suspended.
site, right?
Oh, wait.
That's what I'm
Let
saying.
him talk. Let him talk.
I'm just gonna read the headline here.
I know. I just heard him
Hunter,
claim.
let
No,
him
I
talk.
want to get into it.
No. Hold on. Let him cook. Just let him cook.
Let me read this for the audience so people understand, right? DC police commander suspended, accused of changing crime statistics. Police union says directive to change offense classifications comes from the command staff. And the ADC police commander is under investigation for allegedly making changes to crime statistics in his district. The Metropolitan Police Department confirmed Michael Pulliam was placed on paid administrative leave in mid-May. That happened just a week after Pulliam filed an equal employment opportunity complaint against an assistant chief, and the police union accused the department of deliberately falsifying crime data, according to 3 law enforcement sources familiar with the complaint. The union claims police supervisors in the department manipulate crime data to make it appear violent crime has fallen considerably compared to last year. Pulliam, the former commander of the 3rd District that patrols Adams, Morgan, and Columbia Heights, was placed on leave with pay and told he was under investigation for questionable changes to crime data. 5 law enforcement sources familiar with the investigation told News 4. That came about a week after he filed a complaint against Executive Assistant Chief of Police Andre Wright, according to 3 law enforcement sources familiar with the complaint. News 4 reached out to Pulliam for comment. He denied the allegations against him and referred us to the public information officer. Union officials said there is a large trend of manipulating crime statistics. Okay, there you go.
So the claim here was that it was intentional, right? So can you provide me any piece of evidence, right? Because there's already been an investigation. The investigation has already said that it wasn't intentional. There's no evidence of actual fraud. There's no evidence of actually smudging these numbers. Why did you just straight up lie? Why do you guys do that? You're talking about leftists. You just straight up lied for no fucking reason. Why did you do that?
No.
Also,
This is what I'm talking about, man.
It's also even worse than you're letting on, because part of the reason why he's even part of this, and I'm trying to send this in the chat, is because this is part of a retaliation, part of a retaliation action by Officer Wright. After Officer Wright got embroiled in a large history of controversy, he specifically.
So Hunter, if you would, since we're exploring a point here, let us pretend it is or is not the case. How are we, or the audience, any closer to or further from understanding whether Democrats or Republicans are better for minorities? Because we've got an interesting discussion on policing here. I don't know what the hell that has to do.
Which led to a digression on a story that Rippey clearly doesn't understand, as he didn't catch the part about the 18 pages.
Well, no, she's hyper-fixated on something and wants to be really obnoxious about it.
Okay, you guys. Yeah, you guys like to talk over each other. That's annoying to me. Go ahead, finish, Mr. I'm sorry, not Mr. Rippey. Finish Hunter Dunn, and then Streamer, if you can respond. Hunter Dunn, finish your statement, please.
Yeah, I'm sending this over to Wick. Let me know if you see it. But it appears a large reason why this controversy even happened in the first place was because Pulliam and his wife, Rachel Pulliam, who also works for the MPD, was embroiled in a different scandal that had to do with NSFW text messages by Officer Wright, and because they pushed back against Officer Wright and some of his practices, which does potentially include data manipulation. There's a lot of debate over that in this article, but the reason why Michael Pulliam specifically was put on leave and suspended seems to have more to do with interpersonal dynamics than it has to do with actual crime data. So I think that there's probably better examples you could use. Again, I agree that there are cases where police, for example, in red states like Florida, are not accurately reporting crime data, specifically to make elected officials like Governor DeSantis look better. But on the other hand, just to be clear, this is specifically a bad example, so I'd encourage you guys to look more into a story before trying to use it in a major argument.
So just to read part of this, in one message, seemingly during a 9 a.m. meeting, Wright texted his wife, "This big titty B word can't read. In another, he appeared to reference a work trip as he wrote, "I'm going out of town with a fat, ugly B word. We'll be back tomorrow," followed by, "I'm taking 2 midgets with me." Okay. Make sure this stupid mother effer didn't shoot himself and is lying. Okay. So I guess the accusation you're making here is that the original officer was charged in relation to kind of like he was whistleblowing on something related to this guy, and this guy was retaliating by putting that charge against him. Is that your claim?
Well, it's notable that 𝕵𝖎𝖎 was suspended well before any other officers in the suit, including Wright himself. So I would argue it's pretty clear that the 𝕵𝖎𝖎 controversy specifically is just a bad example in this case. Again, I agree that we need more oversight onto police officers, something that in 2020 Democrats attempted to do and did a piss poor job of it for a variety of reasons, but they at least tried, which Republicans have.
How is
constantly
defunding them more oversight?
Once again, did the Biden administration increase or decrease funding for the police force?
So the
By
public talking
$37
point
billion.
of tons of parties was, politicians was defund the police. That was the line. That was the shirt. That was the meme. How was that?
Point to
It seems
me
like
to a specific bill that was
it
passed by
seems
any
like
Democratic
it
assembly.
seems
Hold on. You
like-
gotta let
actually
streamer
lowered-
finish.
No,
You gotta
seriously,
let
this is
streamer
important.
finish.
You are making a lot of claims. Oh, are you telling me to be quiet?
You're not
Yeah,
even
I'm
letting me
Hunter,
finish my
Hunter, you gotta
claims.
let
Is what
streamer
makes
finish.
Okay,
Let
that's
streamer
fair,
go,
that's fair.
and then you can respond. I promise. Streamer,
Okay,
please.
I'll respond after. That's my bad.
Yeah, you're fine.
right. So the statement defund the police is antithetical to more accountability for the police. For example, that could be like the cry for officer cams, and adding body cams has actually been wildly eye-opening to why certain groups end up getting more conflict with the police. But to stick back to the topic here, one of the things that's really interesting that Democrats like to do with tax dollars is light them on fire. As you may know, the CHIPS Act got passed. One of the things that the Democrats have done in the past was the broadband program. Now, of course, Musk already solved this with Starlink, so the problem's already solved. But $42.5 billion later, 0 homes have this broadband internet.
Okay.
So this CHIPS Act funded a lot of money to innovation, allegedly innovation. There's very little accountability on it. And this is one of the signature wonderful, thank God, if we're bragging about how well Biden did, this would be something a lot of people would point to. Now,
Okay.
Republicans
Sorry,
have a
1 second.
different
What
reaction to
did
this.
you?
Just real quick.
Sorry. Mike.
Before anyone goes, I'm going to let you finish your point real quick. I'm going to let them respond. Then I have some questions to maybe drive this conversation forward. I feel like we're getting stuck in looping on policing, which is important.
Wonderful.
But we want to.
Yeah.
I don't know how to send you articles. But I would love to. I don't know how to send you articles about how they found all this evidence, 3,200 misrepresented crimes in New Jersey. I said New Jersey, Baltimore, Philadelphia, Detroit, Washington D.C. And it's actually all been found by the public safety director. Crimes that has not been included inside the crime statistics.
And you
But
found
we can
it was
move on.
purposeful.
I'm still not sending it. Yes, and I'm still.
Yeah,
not
this is
sending
the
it to you,
impossible
but-
burden. Mr. Rippey is nothing but good faith. If he's telling you it's there, you're going to find these things. He said there was an accusation that there were manipulated crime statistics. We went to NBC4, a local news. 80% of Americans would look at that and say that's fine. That's what happened. Now I'm trying to. Hunter was trying to talk about the legislative actions of Democrats. So Democrats' legislative solution to innovation is take a bunch of money and put it into programs that do things like spend $42.5 billion on not getting broadband internet to people when you could just give Musk a couple of bucks. The Republican answer to this was in the big, beautiful bill where the qualified small business deduction went from a $10 million exemption on cap gains to $15 million. This means the economic incentive for being right about business is going to be empowering businesses companies that can stay in business. So minorities that are getting jobs at companies that can actually exist under better tax treatment is better than flash in the pan startups.
I do want to give it to Tashika first, and then to respond. Then Hunter can respond. Then I have a question for everyone to drive the conversation forward. Go ahead, Tashika, please.
Sorry, I apologize if what I'm about to say is gonna take us back a little bit too far. But Stream Rift, what did you? I don't remember if it was you or what's his face. Which one of you talked about like what was the thing that you said before? Like you said, Democrats are running on defunding the police. Did I hear something along those lines, or am I tweaking?
Yeah, Democrats ran on the line defund the police.
Which one? Like which House or Senate?
I'm
which
not doing this
Senate or
game with
Congress
you, my
support?
friend.
What do
This
you
is
mean
an
this
absurd
game
act.
asking you for evidence? What are we talking about? Like what? Why we are not going to be able to have a fucking debate here if you guys just lie. Name the fucking Senate or Congress Democrat that ran on defunding the police. Do it right now. Name one.
You yelling and calling people liars. It's not going to have you win
I'm
this
loud
debate.
and
Okay?
right. Get over it. I'm loud and right. Loud and right.
No, the
Anyway,
problem is
Just hold on, stop, all of you. The question has been asked, and I am curious too. So this is to Mr. Rippey and Streamrift. Which politician, whether in Congress or in the Senate, ran on defunding the police? I am curious to the answer.
Congressman 𝕵𝖎𝖎 𝖙, Democrat in Michigan, explicitly supported defunding the police and argued it directly. Okay. Representative Cori Bush, one of the most prominent congressional advocates on defunding the police, reportedly arguing shifted money from the police department towards social services. Now, they can say they hijacked the term defund the police, but I'm going to have people that specifically said defund the police. Ayanna Pressley publicly stated defund the police is an agenda she's going to push in some major cities. Ilhan Omar supported defunding the police. And these are just people at the congressional level. Abigail Spanberger, 2020, fellow Democrat, defund the police issues. We need to defund the police because it's seriously hurting Democrat cities.
Okay, so when these people say defund the police, what does Streamrift mean and what do they mean?
Well, so the problem here,
liars. You asked for a list. I gave you a list, and now you want to redirect the stream. Stop making claims if you don't know what you're talking about. Calling us liars.
I didn't make a claim. I asked a question. I didn't make a claim. I asked a question.
Are you just reading headlines? I have the Times article right here that interviewed Rep. Ayanna Pressley and talked about it. She doesn't say the word defund at all. She talks about true reparations, about investments in communities. There's a reason why the Congressional Black Caucus submits an alternative budget every year, because we know that our communities have been historically under-resourced, underinvested in, and divested from. I'm going to then quote the guy who ran for the presidential ticket in 2020 on the Democratic Party, who said, the answer is not to defund the police, it's to fund them. Dude, you don't know what you're talking about?
That's
and you're
what
just
I'm
reading either AI or headlines to do it. I'm sure that like Cori Bush or something might have ran on it, but name a single bill that passed anywhere in the United States that actually defunded the police instead of increasing funding for law enforcement and specifically mental health response as part of a larger law enforcement strategy. Because again, every single person advocating for what you were arguing for wasn't actually trying to cut funding to police departments at all. They were doing the opposite. They were increasing funding for law enforcement that was primarily about solving social issues first.
Okay,
which
we gotta let them respond to this.
So better than just broken glass policing. We're not
real quick, Tashika, then they gotta respond.
Landscaping. We're actually trying to fix issues.
Right. So this is why I asked. When first of all, I would love to see those quotes or those like policy prescriptions that you're citing here for those people. But also, this entire thing, this is why I asked Streamriff, what is your definition of defunding the police and what are they saying, right? Because giving the police more funding so we can fund more social programs to help them in their job is not the defund the police that you and a lot of conservatives like to say that it is, right? So how are you defining it and how are they defining it? And what is their actual policy prescription?
Okay.
Can you do that for me?
To answer an earlier question that you asked me.
First, answer her question. I think that is what you mean.
She asked a question earlier and then just asked more questions. Is there can I answer the first question before we get to new questions?
The mic is yours, friend.
Wonderful. So Tashika, you say, hey, what does so we say the left ran on defund the police, and you're acting as if this isn't something that happened. And to a lot of the right, from, like, shut the fuck up. I'm answering the fucking question.
Hold on.
Damn,
Mr. Streamrift. Go ahead, but I will be moderating here. Don't worry. If anyone needs to shut the fuck up, I will tell them. Okay? Go ahead, Streamrift. The floor is yours. Have the mic.
So
go ahead.
What you're describing is so disconnected from reality that would be like telling folks that COVID didn't happen. And so then you're saying, well, prove the thing. So if the point of having a discussion here is to better understand each other, to let people see ideas being tested, just debating about whether or not which specific politicians used which specific talking points on what particular piece, when the online sentiment was very clearly defund the police. You could run polls and people would know the talking points. They'd hear this. So whether there's a way I read it, there's a way they meant it, there's a way you're understanding it. It is a distinction that doesn't change. That's what most people heard. So if we're trying to find common ground, we got to be in the same universe.
Right. So
In the
now we've
words of
gone from like
luminary-
elected
Okay,
officials.
both
Sorry,
of you
Hunter.
are. Hold on, you're on the same
Like,
team and you're interrupting each other a lot. Okay,
I
Hunter.
think
do
I'm on a
talk a lot.
delay. I think I'm on a delay.
Not the
It's my
single
bad.
video.
Oh, I do want to. I don't want to
I'm
hear.
not seeing a video,
Hold on.
wait.
I do want to give. I do want to
I
give
wanna see
Mr.
a
Rippy a
video
chance to
of
respond. Hold on,
Democrats.
Mr. Rippy. I'm going to give you the mic right now, but I want to have a chance for you to answer the same question and have a response as well, and then we can let Hunter and Tashika respond to both of you. So go ahead.
Hunter, can I go first, please?
Yes, but first, Mr. Rippy. Mr. Rippy, the mic is yours. Go ahead.
I'm just saying, I'm about to send you a video of about 7. We're not gonna play the whole 7 minutes, but it's Democrat politicians. So many people are high-level politicians saying defund the police. Some of them are saying dismantle, like redirect some of the funds. And I said that when I initially started this stuff. When I initially started this, I said people hijack that term defund the police, make it sound like they didn't take money from the police force. But these are some Democrat politicians saying take money from the police force, defund the police. And I'm about to send it to you as soon as I figure out how to send it.
Just right-click my name, send message, send it to me. I'll put it on screen. Do you have a particular timestamp? We're not going to watch all 7 minutes. That's just too long.
Yeah, well, I don't know. I guess you're just gonna watch like the first 45 seconds or
That's
so.
fine. Okay. Yeah, just DM it to me and I will read it on screen.
Some are saying redirect funds. Most of them are saying defund the police.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I'm waiting for the DM.
Can I speak in the meantime, or should I wait?
Yeah, go ahead.
Or if you send it to me, I can send it
Great.
to them too.
So I think it's really funny, Stream Rift, how we have gone from like actual elected officials to like online sentiments. I want to let you know how incredibly vague that is, right? I don't really care what the online sentiment is, right? I don't really care about that. What I'm asking you for, which you have not done yet, is defund the police, right? Because there are multiple definitions, and some of the definitions of defund the police actually don't mean like taking critical amounts of money away from them. They do have an inflated budget, right? And some of that money can be reallocated within the policing system, right? So when they say defund the police, do they mean move money elsewhere within the system, still keeping it in this policing system, and that's still funding the police? Or do they mean just straight up cut their budget and just fuck off the money somewhere else, right? So I want to ask you, which Democratic official is saying this? What do they mean when they're saying this? And also, again, I want to remind you, I do not care what the online sentiment is. These are people who control our lives and legislation. Which one are you talking about? Thank you.
Okay. He has sent me this video. We're going to watch like 45 seconds, and we'll see what happens here.
So we've been talking about defunding the police.
Oh, first of all, is everyone watching? Click watch stream so you can watch along, okay? I want to make sure everyone gets, we don't have to play this like 5 times, okay? Everyone watching? Everyone good? Everyone set? Cool.
So we've been talking about defunding the police.
There's some issues that we ask police to do, like mental health issues or policing in schools and all the rest, that perhaps we can shuffle some of that money around.
Suck it up. Defunding the police has to happen. We need to defund the police.
Mayor Eric Garcetti saying, take some of the money from policing, about $150 million.
I applaud Eric Garcetti for doing what he's done.
Not only do we need to disinvest in police, but we need to completely dismantle the Minneapolis Police Department.
So yes, defund your butts. Defund you.
Yes, I support the reallocation of resources from NYPD.
We will be moving funding from the NYPD to youth initiatives and social services.
Okay. I think that's a good...
Are we going to pretend like this is an answer to my question?
You asked specifically which candidates used the words defund the police.
Holy shit.
And I think that is literally a video of it, and you're so fucking annoying.
Dream. I'm annoying as fuck, but I'm still going to be better than you. Anyway, so like I was saying before, right? The question was not which candidate used the term defund the police. I grant you that there are candidates who use the term defund the police. I'm going to go ahead and restate what I was saying, right? Because I don't know why you have such an attitude, because I'm laughing and I'm fucking whimsy and ridiculous. So like I was saying before, again, the question was, what are their policy prescriptions? How are they planning on implementing this, right? And what do they mean when they say defund the police? I gave you 2 different definitions for defund the police. I'm going to go ahead and ask you again, which one gave the more derogatory definition? Which one?
I'll yield to Mr. Rippey or Hunter if he wants it. I'm good.
I guess that's a concession. Rippey?
I mean, we just heard it. I said this from the very beginning. I said that term hasn't. You could like that. The laughness is a defense mechanism. Like, that doesn't mean that you're actually elevating yourself.
No, I laugh because this is comical.
Well, hold on. We gotta let Mr. Rippey answer, right? Mr. Rippey, go ahead. Yeah.
Wait. All right. Looked like it froze for a second. What I said was there are a lot of politicians that are, high-level Democratic politicians that said defund the police, dismantle the police. Some of them would say that their definition of defunding the police is taking some funds and allocating over to social services, which I get, but it's still defunding the police. It's still taking money from the police force and putting it in a social program. Now, I'm not saying I'm against that, but there are a lot of politicians like Tali, whatever her name is, who said, no, defund the police. That's it. Take money away from the police. There are some of them that are saying reallocate funds. Some of them are saying take money. But now you asked a simple question, which politician said defund the police? And I'm telling you, and your defense is laugh. Yeah, good job. That don't fly over here.
My defense is to laugh because you two are playing in Hunter and I's face. Like, I don't know why. Oh. I've restated my question 3 times now, and the reason you are unable to answer the question is because
no, you keep asking stupid questions. Is the problem
you conceded. I don't know why you're still talking. Anyway, so like I was saying before, I don't know what that was about.
I do have a question for you in a second, Tashika. But
the defense mechanism.
Right. So yet again, the question was not who used the term. I'm asking you, what is like the policy implementation that they want, right? Because that is relevant. Reallocating particular funds from certain parts of the police system is not defunding the police. These funds are not going to make it so that they're less likely to do their job, right? Like, for example, I don't know, like, can someone get this number for me? Like, what is the average amount that police officers pay yearly to just like settlements for like police brutality, things like that? Like, how much?
I don't know off the top of my head. Can you ask the question again? So I can find out.
Right. So, how much yearly do the police spend on paying people out for settlements, for misconduct or whatever it is?
Give it a minute and I'll find out. In the meantime, while I look that up while it's doing its thing, just to maybe kind of actually get into this a little bit, and I do want to move off policing eventually, right? There's a lot of issues, right? But to Mr. Rippey's point, when we look at Rashida Tlaib, she does have some pretty explicit language when it comes to defunding the police. So, for example, in April 2021, she wrote this: no more policing, incarceration, and militarization. It cannot be reformed. She proposed in 2020, the summer of 2020, the 𝕵𝖎𝖎 Act, which framework called for a major divestment of federal resources from policing and incarceration and reinvesting that into community programs. So at least with Rashida Tlaib, it seems she has some pretty extreme positions here. Would that not be fair to say?
I disagree because I have the interview pulled up elaborating on the entirety of her police positions right now and in these times. I want to scroll down to the part that says, oh, absolutely. she was asked the question, can you get into the root causes of this position you are taking? Because people may say, if someone breaks into my house, shouldn't I be able to call the police? And Tlaib's response is, oh, absolutely, specifically referring to calling the police. But property should not have more value than human life. I want to reiterate that. As a society, we've decided the way that we handle issues is to send police and throw people in jail. Mental health, poverty, you name it, we are policing and over-criminalizing. It's not making us safer. And then she goes on to describe specific acts that she wants to take to help. In this case, her specific argument is that we should be investing more into social solutions first because we should not be prioritizing property over human life, which I think is a fair claim, specifically discussing how when police were called on George Floyd, that only led to, as we have seen, the murder of George Floyd and the conviction of Derek Chauvin for killing him. But she's very clear here that she believes that police should be a resource, should be something that we should be going to when it comes to someone whose life is under threat. So again, like, that's not really a fair characterization of the point she's making. She's specifically critiquing, possibly in less than effective terms, the over-militarization of police. I'm sure there are absolutely some people in the large left coalition that, for example, may actually want to abolish the police entirely. I've heard it before. That is far from a standard position. But if we're getting into the positions of random people online, I think we really should talk about some of the larger right-wing conservative commentators and donors. For example, Peter Thiel, who claimed that democracy and freedom are fundamentally incompatible, also arguing that the introduction of the right to vote, women's rights, was the biggest blow to capitalist democracy in the 20th century. So, and this guy, unlike random people on Tumblr, is funding and bankrolling Republican candidates, is running Palantir, which is basically Big Brother, and is a close personal friend of the vice president. So if we're talking about random people online, I would love to see you defend Peter Thiel, Nick Fuentes, or Republican candidate for House, Brandon Herrera, who has a real shot of winning. Do you want to know what he said about women and children? Because almost no other Republican congressperson is going to defend it. Or we can go further, talk about Max Miller.
Sure.
If we want to talk about the protection of minorities, the most vulnerable people among us, I think we should talk about the protection of women and girls.
Okay,
why is a domestic abuser not being thrown out of the party by party leadership? Why is he being defended by the president?
Just before we move forward, I'm not sure what happened to Mr. Rippey. I'm going to DM him, see if he crashed. I'm not sure what happened with him. We'll try to get him back. Do you know Stream Rift? You have his number. If you can contact him, see what happened. Hopefully.
Yeah, he just messaged me.
Sorry again. Just to,
yeah, I'll let you know when I know more.
Yeah. Let me know when we know more. We're gonna move forward anyway. To answer your question, Tashika, which is how much is paid out annually. From what I can find, it depends on the jurisdiction.
Yes, of course.
New York City, for example, the historical average is 170 million a year. Chicago's 46 million a year, right? So there's a wide range. It's hard to.
No, there is. It is by district to district, right?
Yeah.
But like overall, they can pay up to like what I believe it was $3 bill to $4 bill, right? In the span of like the past 10 years, right? I think. And a lot of this is paid for by like our tax dollars. If it is the case that we can take some of this money and put it towards more social programs to aid police officers on their outings or whatever they need to do, or hell, even increase certain levels of training, like de-escalation training, right? These are all examples of like defunding the police, but defund the police just sounds stupid, right? Just like the term itself just sounds really fucking dumb. So I would have to ask you what they mean when they say this.
Yeah, just real quick. Mr. Rippey, can you hear us? Sir? Are you there? Hello?
Yeah, I can hear y'all. Can y'all hear me?
Yes,
hear me?
We can. We can't see you yet, but we can hear you.
Yep.
Yes.
I'm having trouble. Okay.
It's the deep state. They're trying to stop you from speaking.
I think if you hover over your screen is where the camera button is.
Give him a minute.
Discord's a little sneaky.
But I do want to hear the answer to the. I do want to give you both Stream Rift and Mr. Rippey response to what Tashika just said. Stream Rift, you'll probably have to carry that since Mr. Rippey's having connection.
I didn't hear it. I didn't hear it because I was like.
Yeah.
Got you. Well, I mean, I think like part of what's powerfully annoying here is that you're arguing on a stupid point, and the way that you're arguing really leaves us at the same conclusion. So roughly speaking, what it sounds like is you've got the position that if we stop paying out any police brutality cases, then we'll have the funds for social services, so that way we won't need to do that. And if that isn't your presupposition, then how is it that we create the opportunity to have additional resources for the law enforcement so that we can have all of the things that you want without cutting on things, for example, like them being able to have enough staff to cover everything so officers can actually be rested when they go to work? So I think that it's an oversimplification to say, well, there's some fat in here, we can cut it out. Fact of the matter is, most cops have a phenomenal amount of stress. They end up having it really wreck their personal lives, and it's it's a significant burden. On top of that, I personally know at least one cop who quit the job because folks are making it impossible and setting impossible standards. The Democrats setting impossible standards for law enforcement. So not only can a cop die at work, he can end up being accused of something, following his training, and have his entire life ruined, like 𝕵𝖎𝖎.
Oh, whatever. Anyway, so I think that is not the...
That's a concession, isn't it? By your rules. Yes. Got a 𝕬𝖎𝖏 concession.
No, hold on. There's a very clear reform.
I didn't engage it was a concession.
Repeat that, please, Hunter Dunn. I didn't hear it.
Yeah, there's a very clear reform here that's actually a free market solution. I think we could get both Republicans and Democrats on board when it comes to fixing the problem with police brutality in this country. Two easy parallel reforms that I've worked on in some of my organizing work. One is that police budgets would require a self-insurance fund from which all settlements and judgments related to officer misconduct are paid. This would ensure that financial consequences remain with the department, not the general fund. And then the other thing would be requiring state legislation authorizing cities to require officers to carry individual professional liability insurance. Officers with multiple misconduct claims would become uninsurable and would face decertification through state-level laws. In these cases, it would actually provide a free market solution to prevent misconduct by police in these cases, because it becomes unprofitable for the police department and the individual officer to continue acting the way that they're acting if they want to keep their jobs and keep their funding to get that cool pizza party at the end of the year. I'm being a little bit facetious there because I don't think you're interested in any real solutions. You just cheer on when you see a black man get beat up by the cops. But in the interest of trying to reach out some sort of
I call party foul. I call party foul.
Hold on. Come on. Let's keep it at least at an 8 and not a 10 here. I don't know if Streamer is cheering on police brutality.
I have never once cheered that on. And Hunter, you're just a piece of shit for that. We can't have an honest discussion. You sit there and say, "Oh, you can't have an honest discussion." You accuse me. I hold positions that are legitimately worth criticizing, perhaps. For example, I believe that the CHIPS Act was a terrible way of empowering minorities, and I like Big Beautiful Bill. We're not talking about that. Why is that, Hunter? Why is that?
Can I get to respond?
Well, when it comes to the CHIPS Act, I would ask you why Republican Representative 𝕾𝖎𝖎𝖙𝖚 took credit for passing it when they actually voted against it. If the bill was so awful and so terrible, why did at least 10 different congressional Republicans take credit for parts of the bill that were passed that they voted against? Like, yeah, you are out of step with the Republican majority on this one because they're taking advantage of a bill that they didn't pass. And that's why, fundamentally, I am criticizing.
What the fuck do you think I even said?
Just real quick, just hold on. Housekeeping. Hold on.
The reality of the situation.
Hold on, please. Housekeeping. Mr. Rippey's having connection issues. I don't know if he's going to be back. In the interest of keeping it fair, I might jump in a little bit and put my 2 cents in LARP for a little bit. Is that okay if I LARP a little bit as your opposition? Would anyone have a problem with that? Just in the issue of we don't have a dog pile here. Unless Lactoid's listening and wants to jump in, and then he can do it, right? But
yeah, Lactoid, you could hop in.
Right.
Anyway.
Go ahead, 𝕬𝖎𝖏, please.
Yeah, so before, I just want to let you guys know, I feel like we're slowly drifting from the actual topic here.
Which is why, I want to get off policing and push.
Yeah. But I want to try and bring things a little bit back. And unfortunately, and then after this, we can move on if you want to, Wick, if it's getting too stuck on the policing thing. You said that like police officers are struggling, mental health, 𝕵𝖎𝖎𝖙, right? I think the main way to allow
𝕵𝖎𝖎𝖙 for the people that respond if someone's coming into my house and raping my children.
They're gonna rape your kids before they get there. Be sure. Anyway, so like I was saying before, I don't know why what are we talking about, guys? Anyway, like I was saying, I think the best way to make a police officer's life easier is definitely to invest in things that actually lessen crime, right? Like community centers. Like I don't know specifically what it is. Let me see something.
What makes you think that a community
quickly.
center lessens crime? You're making a statement that is unsupported
Because
by any
specifically
fact
for
you've
like
offered.
young black, because specifically for like young black youth, right? A lot of the issues that we have within like particular like black communities or just brown communities in general would be like gang violence. Would you agree?
Where's the proof of what the claim that you're making?
I'm asking.
You're claiming that money in community centers reduces crime. It's a specific falsifiable claim. Make your point with where's the proof?
I'm
Where's
okay.
the
So
proof?
I'm just okay. Would you like me? I can grab that for you, but can I just finish my statement, please?
Finish your statement, then if you want
do
to
anything
grab
you'd
it,
like.
go ahead. Yes.
Thank you. So like I was saying before, you would agree that a lot of the issues that we have within like the black community or brown communities in general is like gang violence, right? And I think the main
I think
way
it's a
that
lot
we
more
should
fundamental than that. And so if you want to have
do you
a
mean by that?
reasonable discussion, you could actually engage with trying to probe what I
More
actually think.
fundamental.
Yeah. So one of the things I believe I've already commented in here, it's worth bringing up again, is I think that the nuclear black family suffered an attack that destroyed it. And I think that you can talk about the downriver from that. I think a gang is certainly a way to look for humans are tribal. We're looking for a group. I think young black men that had fathers in the home would be more likely to spend time with dad than out looking for another group. It's just the way humans behave. I'm not making any judgments on anything, but structurally, I don't think the gangs are the problem. I think the problem happened before the gangs showed up.
Right. So I think we can definitely get to that point soon. But oh, hello,
Mr. Rippey. Yeah, just I think whenever he gets in here, it resets, so he picks up like the stream.
Unfortunately,
he needs to mute
Sorry.
the stream. It's fine. I apologize. Look, I apologize for the technical difficulties. I don't know what's up, right? It just is
Right.
what it is. But we're gonna muscle through. Okay. Tashika, respond. Go ahead, please.
Right. So the way in which we like lessen things like gang violence within these like black and brown communities is to get like a lot of young people off the streets, as those take up like, you know, the majority of like those groups, right? And if you want to stop feeding those types of gangs, it is important to get them off the street, and there is evidence for it. You can look at PubMed, you can look at Brookings, you can look at SSRN. All of these sources say the exact same thing, that when you invest into these communities and you give them community centers, that not distracts them, but gives them something else to do other than being on the street, we do see a heavy reduction in violent crime. So that is a fact, right? So by investing in more like neighborhood initiatives, community action, all of these things, you're actually going to have police officers, one, having to do less work, and two, finding themselves in less dangerous situations, right? I think one of the main reasons why police officers are consistently depressed, they go home, they beat the shit out of their wives and kids, all of these things is because one, they don't have a lot of mental health care. Their training when it comes to civilians is garbage. They don't have a lot of experience in terms of
how many minutes did George
de-escalation.
Floyd give the police shit before he ended up with the knee on the back? How many minutes? 1, 2? Do you know? You're talking about police not having the right training. You're saying they're having problems, and you're saying with community centers. How would George Floyd have, for example, decided that in the first 10 seconds he was just going to comply?
How long did Derek Chauvin keep his knee on George Floyd's neck?
I'm curious about the 13
No,
minutes
I mean
before that,
because I
where
guarantee
he's completely evading it. Derek
Well,
Chauvin
you
was
do
using
gotta, hold on,
exactly
Stream Rift. You do gotta let him answer.
I want to
the
know.
question.
Exactly how long do you have to not want to be arrested for you to deserve to have a knee to your neck for 9 minutes and 29 seconds? Exactly.
I wasn't saying he deserved it, you obnoxious
an alleged
twat-waffle.
conservative,
No,
an
I
alleged
never said.
right-winger who believes in small government. No, because you're doing the "what was she wearing" thing. That's what you're doing right now, right?
So
Like that
if
is
what
what
I'm
I'm
saying.
probably wouldn't be having this problem.
So what our good friend Tashika was saying is that with community centers, law enforcement would be in less distress. They'd have less conflict. They'd have less problems. That's her claim. I'm testing that. I'm looking at an instance where a lot of folks, particularly on the left, critical of law enforcement, bad training. Never mind the fact that this is a maneuver that happens all the time, And prior to that, people were trained on this for years and years and years, and no one died. And all of a sudden, this one time someone died. And that was terrible. The number of people that should die in police custody is 0. But what I'm trying to ask Tashika before you stepped in, so rudely interrupted, is how would funding, for example, community centers. Now we're in a world, and George Floyd grew up with these community centers. And now when the police show up, it's better because I want to hear how that is connected.
So I think it's important that I finish my statement, right? Because all of these things are indeed connected, as much as you like to deny that. So thank you for.
I thought you asked me a question. I was engaging with it.
Let her go, please.
Right. So I'm going to go ahead and finish what I was saying, right? So again, we see that a lot of police officers have mental health issues because they do not have adequate mental health care. They do not have good de-escalation protocol. They do not have is it true or not? Actually, no, fuck it. I'll just leave that. But we know that a lot of their training is indeed lacking. And by allowing these community centers and investing into communities, they are going to come face to face with people less often, right? They're going to come face to face with people who have criminal records less often. But also, right? Would you not say, and I guess this is more of like a theoretical conversation, right? Would you like, I'm sorry, matter of fact, let me just open up with this. Stream Riff, why do you think there is such tension between like police officers and the Black community?
Probably because the Black community commits a significant amount of crime.
They commit a significant amount of crime.
Yes.
Do they commit a significant amount of crime because they genuinely commit more crime, or because there's like over policing, so they're more likely to be captured for a crime?
I believe it's more likely that they commit crime.
Why is that?
Why do you think it's more likely?
Yeah.
Because if we look at a lot of statistics and all of these institutes that you're talking about and all of these exciting institutions that you trust the data on, they indicate increased amounts of crime. So if you want to argue with that,
why? Why?
So instead of trying to wander me through something,
this is a part. Well, this is important though, because I cannot continue my claim off of like false information though, right? Because the reason that's
all the time, at least in this chat.
No, I haven't.
Do you think that there's an inherent trend or cultural reason why you're arguing that, for example, Black people maybe commit more of X crime? If you want to be specific and nail down which specific crime you're referring to.
My point is this.
You're both too thick on this one. But go ahead, Tashika.
Let me just say this. My point is this: if we invest into communities, right, and we see that investment into these communities lowers crime, then we are going to see less arrests in these areas, less hopefully, right? If like actual policing like follows along with these trends, we're going to see less crime in these areas. We're going to see less interactions with police. We're going to see less instances of police and civilians getting into whatever they typically get into that you like to bring up with like George Floyd, right? So when you say like, how would this have prevented so-and-so with like George Floyd dying? I think he probably wouldn't have been in that situation to begin with, but I don't even know how you would determine that. I don't even know how you would expect me to answer that question, to be honest with you. That's my entire
you're making
point
a stupid claim that can't really be supported. One of the things that a statement I've made, I've been very clear, is that I think that the Black families take in a real fucking downturn. And I think the destruction of the Black family, the nuclear family, is where a lot of the damage is. I'm a 9th generation ordained elder. I love families. I'm pro-family. And the government programs that have forced Black fathers out of their homes, I think, are a part of the cancer here. So instead of saying, why don't we have community centers? Why don't we have fathers? What's like so uncomfortable about that? Because the United States government has given an incentive for fathers to not participate in Black homes.
What is the incentive?
What's up, Rippy?
Welcome back. So the question is, what is the incentive? So the question Tashika is asking is, what is the incentive that the government has given for Black fathers not to participate in Black homes? Is that a fair read of the question that you're asking, Tashika?
Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Right. So, Mr. Rippy, I can run at this if you want to. Fathers in the home.
Someone answered the question.
All right. Well, there's an able-bodied father check where basically if they'd go to a woman's homes, if she's on government support, they'd go doing midnight raids looking for shoes. And if they can find a man, then all the government checks get cut. So what this did is it created a financial incentive for mothers to be divorced from the fathers and keep them out entirely because the government's going to take care of it. So you're saying now make the government the community center, the center of the community, not the father. I think you want to destroy families, and maybe you don't know what a intact family looks like or what a community built off intact families looks like, but it looks a lot like Black Wall Street. Blacks are certainly capable of building and being industrious. They just need the same thing that the Mormons in the desert needed, which is the government to fuck off.
Okay, hold on. You threw a bunch of presuppositions into there. The reason why, if we're discussing why there is a higher trend of single parents in Black family households, again, which you haven't provided any data for, I'm sure I could find that data, but a little bit annoyed that you don't have anything ready here. We should talk about the impact of the
King v. Smith. King v. Smith. No, just real quick, just another point. Like 10 seconds. King v. Smith, 1968 Supreme Court decision. You can find everything you want from there. It was a 9-0 decision. You're acting like civil rights didn't happen. You're acting like all of these demonstrable things didn't happen. But go ahead and say, "Oh no, here's the source." There's the source, as you were, Hunter.
No, I'm talking about the single father, Ray. Talking about the attempts to draw.
That's
Black
what I'm talking about too.
No, what he's asking for, okay, you guys are talking past each other. What he's asking for, just real quick,
that allows for states to not deny aid to families with dependent children based on the presence of a substitute father. That actually encourages the creation of two-family households, just not with the original biological father, right? If there's an abusive situation, a wife leaves and then she marries a new person, that makes sure that the welfare benefits don't go away. That's a good thing, unless you're pro-child abuse. I'm not accusing you of being that. I'm asking you.
No, so you just did one of the most common bullshit sleight of hands here, where you say either you agree with me or you eat babies, and that's an insane way to argue.
If I asked you, do you support eating babies or not, and then I said, if you disagree with me on whether or not you should eat babies, then you support eating babies, then yes, it does. So that's a dumb analogy. I'm asking you, do you support letting abusive women leave the abusive man, remarry, and still get benefits for the child? Yes or no? This is a very simple question.
No, it's not. What is your one sentence question? I'll answer it very directly.
Do you think that abused women who leave their ex-husband, marry someone else, should still get benefits for their kid who they took out of an abusive home?
I'm not sure.
Under what circumstances would you be against it?
Well, so if we have a situation where they're getting married, the societal question is,
no, we're talking just real quick. We're talking about abusive homes. So there is abuse in this hypothetical. Someone has beaten their spouse. The spouse decides, I need to leave and take my child with me, and they go and they remarry. Why would you be against them continuing to get benefits from the state?
Well, so I'm going to give a very detailed answer to the stupid question. The states set their own guidelines on Medicaid, and the way that the eligibility would be based likely off of household income, which would be impacted by whether or not new husband had the same income. Let's just assume new husband had identical income. Sure, we should continue it. Okay. If the situation is only different because there was abuse and now we have the same thing, fine. Stupid fucking question.
It's not a stupid question, given that is what the case was about entirely. It was about whether or not a kid could still be considered a dependent child when they were taken out of a home with the original father. In cases, again, this was pre-no-fault divorce. So in these cases, there had to be a pretty good reason for there to be a single parent, or a remarried parent in the first place.
Increasingly white individual here. Pasty white Hunter, question for you. Why do you think my good friend Mr. Rippey here and many of his fellow brothers of similar melanated levels believe that the United States government killed the black family?
I actually have a very good answer for that. Black families are disproportionately impacted by incarceration. 40% of black households are missing a parent because of incarceration. And for example, extreme racial disparities persist in arrests. Let's talk about marijuana. Black people are 3.6 times more likely than white people to be arrested for marijuana possession, despite almost identical usage rates. That 3.6% increase, right? If black people are 13% of the population, times 3.6% explains the racial disparity for why black people are more likely to be in prisons almost Exactly. The 3.6 times more likely to be arrested stat very directly maps onto the difference between 13% and 40%. So again, I totally agree. The American government, which has been more on Republicans, but Democrats, especially Bill Clinton, who is sort of a Republican light, especially considering his close personal friend with Jeffrey Epstein, whose best friend was Donald Trump.
Jesus, fuck. You give me shit about bringing things in, and we're doing the Epstein files. Let's do Mossad. Let's do Black Oak. Let's do Flat Earth. Let's do Masons.
Okay, hold on. Stop. Streamer, stop.
Actually providing social services.
Okay. I want to ask Rippy. I want to get him on it. So the question is asked to Mr. Dunn here. Why does he think that you consider that the Democrats and the government destroyed black families? He gave his answer that it was because of increased incarceration rates, right? And because of the crime bill and other these things. Do you agree with that answer? And if not, what is your answer? Go ahead, Mr. Rippy.
Not at all. To just say that, throughout a blanket statement, the reason why the single parenthood rate went from 1 to 5 to 4 or 5 in a short 50 years since 1950 to the year 2000 is because more black people end up in prison, and that means that there's a racial disparity. Now, every disparity indicate racism. The reason why is because the Great Society Act was passed, which made the single mother married to the government. They used to exactly what Rip just said. They used to go inside the homes, and my parents can attest to this. My grandparents can attest to this. My aunts and uncles, they will go inside the homes to make sure there is no man inside the house, because if there is a man inside the house, going to get cut off government assistance. It's not because of the guys just went to prison because of some crime bill that happened in the 1980s, 20 years after the Civil Rights Act, because it started to happen prior to that. They used to make sure there's no man in the house. To break down a nuclear family is their main agenda. President Lyndon B. Johnson spoke on this. If you break down a nuclear family, that's going to be it. Because prior to that, we're actually thriving because we had a two-parent household. If you have a two-parent household, that's a key to a successful thriving society. Prior to the Rights Act being passed, prior to Lyndon B. Johnson and putting in the Great Society Act, which made black women married to the government, we were actually thriving. We had a family structure. That's the reason why, according to Thomas Sowell, Rod Wilson, Walter E. Williams, that's the reason why black people were actually outpacing white people in the near future when it comes down to economic value. Because we had a dual family system, and we focus on capitalism, building our own wealth, and not relying on the government. You rely on the government, everything goes downhill. That's the facts.
I understand that you're having some technical issues, so you might not have heard my answer. So I'm just going to ask you two questions straight up. I'm going to ask you to explain two statistics. One is that since the passage of the Great Society, the full income poverty rate fell from 19.5% nationwide to 2.3% in 2017. I'm going to follow that up with, why is the disparity in arrests between white and black people for marijuana usage, which, again, white and black people do at the same rate, 3.6 times higher for black people than for white people? Can you answer those two questions?
All right, so I actually brought up this point earlier when I brought up the 8600 to 1 bill, which means that people get more time for crack within a comparison of powder cocaine. These comes down to the crime bill that I actually put in place. And I think you mentioned something about Bill Clinton earlier. It comes down to the people who authored these crime bills that caused mass incarceration that targeted black and brown people. I mentioned that. I said that. That's my definition of systemic racism. But not every disparity indicate racism. But in this case, we know that it's much easier to target black folks in Detroit selling crack, and it's actually going to the to the affluent area to target people that's doing cocaine. We know that the numbers are actually going to be a lot higher. And the prison numbers, the higher the prison numbers are, incarceration rate is, the higher the more amount of money that the system gets. I'm not discounting that. I'm agreeing with that.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Again, there's absolutely an incentive to put specifically marginalized people in prison. And that the 1994 crime bill, which was passed under President Bill Clinton, who was a Democrat, was a factor of that. Do you happen to know when it came to specifically the Senate that passed it? It passed it 95-4. Do you happen to know the split between senators who opposed and supported it? It was bipartisan. Only 4 senators opposed it, and it was 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans. And they opposed it for different reasons.
I apologize.
Small government. The Democrats opposed it for disproportionate effect on marginalized communities. And this was still on top of the Violence Against Women Act being passed as a subset of it. So we shouldn't pretend like the crime bill was the worst thing that ever happened. It had some good subsets.
Well, but this
overall,
is Hunter.
Policing of Black community, which started under the 1980s under Reagan, which had to do with, for example, the war on drugs, which again has consisted for a long period of time, but definitely escalated during the 1980s with allegations that the CIA helped assist with cocaine trafficking for the Contras. So again, we're talking under Reagan here. So when we go back to it, you did answer on the disparity question, and you're right. There's absolutely targeting of marginalized individuals to put them into prison. Do you know where that's happening the most in the U.S.?
I just want to say I'm not cutting you off. It's just that I have personally I have a Starlink, which is great, but whenever it starts to rain really hard. I'm only hearing like
there
one
is a
out of every
delay.
four
This
words
is
that
look.
you say.
This is why. Hold on. Yeah, just to let the audience know, this is why I'm letting them go a little bit of a crosstalk here, because I realize that Mr. Rippey is having a delay and he's not intending to interrupt, right? It's just he doesn't know, right? Because the thing, we're doing the best we can with the tech we have, okay? And gang, just on a personal note, if you think you can moderate better, I encourage you to create your own channel and do that. But you can't, so you won't. That said,
So I apologize in advance. I mean, I wasn't.
You're fine. Go ahead, Mr. Rippey, please. Mike's yours.
Yeah, I was just saying, I wasn't cutting you off, man. I understand what you're saying. I think we're actually in agreement. It did some of these crime bills. I'm not saying it's the worst. That's what you said, and that's not exactly what I said. I said things like that, and of course, so the war on drugs. I do videos about the Reagan administration and the war on drugs, how it impacted the Black community in a negative light. But also, what impacted Black communities are people like in New York City, in Detroit, and Chicago in the late '60s, early '70s. We have a movie called American Gangster, where Frank Lucas actually brought in heroin over from Vietnam, and also Bumpy Johnson, who's prior to that, and also Nicky Barnes. There were a lot of Black drug lords in there that seemed to get discounted, like nobody seems to pay attention to, because we're too busy paying attention to the CIA so-called putting drugs to the Black community. At the end of the day, it was our job. This is what I talk about. We like personal responsibility. We like accountability. We have to pick up those drugs and sell them. If somebody leaves some crack in my house, what do you think I'm going to do about it? You think I'm going to pick it up and sell it? It's just easy. And all of that, they implemented the hip hop community, and they implemented and they injected themselves into the movie business. When Black folks first started making movies, it was about Black exploitation films. Too much like Dolomite, the Max, all about pimp culture and selling drugs and dealing drugs. These are the racist executives in Hollywood and in the music industry that make us rap about gangster rap about selling drugs to our own people, rap about being in prison is actually a good thing. And we fall for it. But at the end of the day, we pick up the microphone, we rap this stuff. We do these movies and we embrace, we validate, we sell these ideas to our own people. So I'm talking about lack of accountability.
Okay.
Government does have an incentive keeping the Black community where it's at. The Democrats.
I think I got the gist.
Yeah, we're losing you.
Yeah, a lot of what you said, Mr. Rippey, unfortunately, we are losing you. We I don't know. You keep cutting out.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is a great ad for Starlink, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm on Starlink too. I guess it's not raining in Vegas, so that helps.
Exactly. You're in a fucking desert. Anyway. So.
Sorry.
Yeah, so I guess I think I got the gist of what you're saying, and I guess this conversation has done exactly what I feared it would do, where we're like focused on Black people. Black people are not the only minority within the United States, and I think we should probably start expanding this conversation to the other minorities. Okay, but again, I just want to respond to Rippey real quick, and then after that, I think we should probably move on if he doesn't have a rebuttal. You guys always talk about like the drug epidemic and all that kind of shit, but you never talk about the 100 to 1 ratio. You guys never talk about the Just Say No campaign. You never talk about that shit anyway. And also, I don't think you guys realize how much you delegitimize the Black mind by saying that it's fucking like music and all this other shit that influences Black people to do dumb shit. Most Black people don't even have a fucking criminal record. Someone listening to a song isn't going to make them commit crimes. There's no fucking evidence for that. Stop saying that bullshit. But I think what is important for us to have a conversation about is the broader things. That Black people are not the only minorities in this country, right? I would love for the two of you to at some point say, I don't know, defend Donald Trump's actions against women, defend the fact that he sacked the Supreme Court to rescind things like Roe v. Wade, the fact that he lost his case to 𝕵𝖎𝖎. Can we start expanding things to like women, trans people, anything? Can we talk? Oh, okay.
Well, no,
I guess not.
It's just
I'm joking.
unfortunately.
Can we talk about things like the SAVE Act?
Well,
Can we talk about anything else?
Yeah, in that case, if I may, just so it isn't a 2v1. Okay, let's talk about a different minority when it comes to the left and right. Let's talk about the Jews. We can talk about which party has been better when it comes to fighting anti-Semitism. And again, I'm going to take off my moderator hat and kind of go forward a little bit here. So excuse me for that. But there is would you agree that on the left, there is a growing rate of anti-Semitism within the party that is being accepted and being promoted in certain circles? Would you agree that that's the case?
I believe in certain circles that it is getting to a point for sure. I think the fact that a lot of people are witnessing what's going on in the Levant, in the Middle East, and because they don't feel like anything is being done, and because they see the type of rhetoric that comes out of states like Israel or the types of politicians that are even just within this country, it breeds a level of radical thought that can be attributed to anti-Semitism. I do think that that is a problem. But when you're talking about like defend against anti-Semitism, are there any pieces of legislation that are like anti-Jew? Or are we talking about free speech?
Well, I think that when we talk about how discrimination works, we recognize that legislation isn't the only form of discrimination. Cultural discrimination.
Right, but cultural discrimination cannot be controlled. Right? That's the first
thing. Do you not think that I don't agree with you. I think that cultures can self-moderate, right? Can self-police how they deal with different minorities in the culture, right?
Yeah.
I think that that's like saying that it can't be controlled is a little bit of a cop-out. I think it can.
No, let me restate. Sorry.
Sure.
When I say that, of course we can like influence the way people talk about these things, right? Obviously. But I would first have to ask you what exactly you want here, right? Because a lot of the rhetoric that comes out about that against Jewish people, like I don't know what you want. Like when you talk about discrimination, what do you mean? Are you talking about systemic
Sure.
or personal? If it's personal, then you should call out your friends. It's interpersonal. What do you want?
So what I personally would like is my friends who are Jewish to feel comfortable in spaces that are left leaning again. That's what I would like at the end of the day. One of the problems I'm having, and this is a real problem, I'm not memeing here, is that many people who I have worked with in the past who are Jewish, who are in left-wing spaces, no longer feel comfortable there because it's become so normalized to be anti-Semitic. One of the things, that is a big problem. And I think that we are not taking it seriously on the left enough. And I think that while the right also has huge anti-Semitism problems, I don't know at this juncture which party is currently doing it better, to be very honest with you.
So unfortunately, Wick, we're not talking about the left in this debate. We're talking about parties, right? And if you think that the online left has some anti-Semitism going on, for sure, right? I don't deny that, but that's not what we're talking about. That type of discrimination and that type of hate speech can really only be quelled by calling out your peers, right? It can only be quelled by if someone says something fucking crazy to you at your job, you go to HR. That's how you fix these types of things. But what we're talking about is party. So what I would have to ask you is, what are the Democrats, what are the Democrats who are in office that are spouting anti-Semitic rhetoric? Because if anything, Donald Trump
July 15th.
I'm not done speaking, boy.
I'm
not done speaking. Thank you. If anything, Donald Trump explicitly has a history of anti-Semitism by saying that he doesn't want Black people counting his money because Black people are inherently lazy and stupid. He only wants men who wear yarmulkes all day counting his money. Obviously, the Jewish money stereotype. So what politician are you referring to on the Democratic side that is somehow advocating for discrimination against Jewish people? Democrats, one of the main consistent critiques of Democrats is how often they side with Israel. So who are you talking about?
So July 15th, 2026, there was a House amendment presented in Congress eliminating $3.3 billion in funding to Israel. I would love this. This would be wonderful. This is a policy I would support. But since we're talking about the parties, let's look at the elected representatives. So who supported eliminating the funding for Israel? One Republican and 215 said no. So
is that discrimination?
Rick, to your Jewish friends who are concerned about having the United States government taking care of them, if Republicans are saying we should be funding Israel,
that's
and
not
if
an accurate representation of my point here. We are concerned. My Jewish friends are not concerned specifically about the government. That is a further concern along the way. But what I was saying is that in cultural spaces that are more left-leaning, there is a growing and rising in anti-Semitism. And that was the point I was making. So it's not a government point. To your point, Tashika, about politicians, however, I think that we could look, one issue that has been brought up is Mamdani. Mamdani is in New York City, okay? And he has a team of lawyers. Not one of them is Jewish. Do you think that's a problem in New York City to have 32 lawyers on his team? I think is the number.
Is that
not one of them
is that
discriminate?
Is it discrimination to not have a Jewish person on?
It would be
on the
like
team?
going. It would be like going into a primarily black city, and then having no black people on your staff. It is not necessarily racist.
He does have Jewish members on his staff, though, so I don't think that's a good comparison.
But not in the positions of a lawyer.
Okay.
Do they need to
and
be
there's
in
lots
the
of Jewish lawyers in New York.
All due respect.
Lots of them.
That's silly as fuck. Okay. Just be like, it is not discrimination to not have a particular
to not hire
ethnic
someone
group.
based off of their religious. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, let
One second. It is. No, it is not. It is not discrimination to happen to not have someone of a particular ethnic group doing what you believe, what kind of job you believe they should have. That's like higher up. I don't see how you can prove discrimination from that. That's just. I'm not gonna lie. That's just like.
Well,
that's
the insidious nature of certain types of discrimination. They're very, very hard to prove. One of the reasons that we are against what the recent Supreme Court ruled when it comes to the Voting Rights Act is they've set the standard of proof to prove discrimination to such a high bar that it's almost impossible to do. It'd become comically impossible to prove that there was actual racial animus in their discrimination, because instead of the old standard, which we could look at the results and how the results were discriminatory, they had to look at instead the intent. And proving intent in these cases is astronomically harder. No, I'll just see to you right now. Let me finish real quick. I'll just see to you right now. I can't prove intent here, but it is something that does raise my eyebrows a little bit when it comes to this.
I think that's silly though, because I'm sorry, Hunter. I just want to say just 3 seconds. I just think that's silly. There are many identities that make up New York City that aren't a part of this. I don't think you hold that same standard for them. They don't have infinite spots for his team. Him not having a Jewish person, like, it's not even that he doesn't even have a Jewish person on his team. Your contention is that he doesn't have a Jewish person as his lawyer. That's a huge stretch. I don't even know how to argue that. But yeah, sorry, go ahead, Hunter.
Yeah, I was also going to say, like, we have data on who the applicants were for the position, the people that were considered. There was the only Jewish person that we're aware of who was considered is Associate Justice John Leventhal, who was considered and made it pretty far in the nomination process until they discovered that he started on Ghislaine Maxwell's legal team, and that's why they dropped him from consideration. So
right.
I'm just saying, I think that's a bad example specifically
to respond to you.
He got dropped because of his association with a high-profile legal case where he defended a sex trafficker, not because of anything to do with his identity. So it's just like, that's just a bad example.
Just to respond to you, Hunter Dunn, do you think it's concerning that Jews didn't feel safe enough to apply to be under Mamdani's
How do you know this?
It is
How did you run a poll of Jewish lawyers in New York City to see how many of them didn't want to work for him? Who's Mamdani's director of writing, by the way?
I don't know off the top of my head. Who?
Julian Gerson, who was also an important advisor on his campaign team. He is Jewish. We also talk about Morris Katz from Fight Agency, Jewish. We also talk about Andrew
do we want to
Epstein,
talk about
his
Morris Katz from Fight
communications
Agency,
director,
giving his relationship to Plattner?
We can talk about
accused
Jewish
of
members
rape,
of his campaign team who've been harassed by members of the Canary Mission. So, like, he definitely does have Jewish members of his campaign team and also major parts of his coalition, including, for example, Brad Lander. However, I do grant you, there's absolutely anti-Semitism on the left and right that is rising. Can I give a couple of examples?
Of course.
Yeah, so the first example I'll give is absolutely. There are a group of people who I'd call red browns or tankies or nosbles who unfortunately consider themselves to be on the left, and I'm not really interested in disputing them at this point, but they have a tendency to blame the conduct of Israel on all Jewish people, which I'd argue is an extreme case of anti-Semitism, right? Israel is doing, I would consider it to be a genocide, but I think most people can agree that Benjamin Netanyahu is at least pushing the bounds of what could be considered a war crime.
Yeah,
I
don't have any problem with that as the thing. That's just to be clear on my end. I don't consider you saying Israel is doing a genocide to be anti-Semitic. That is not what I'm speaking of. However, I do consider it a problem. If I may finish real quick, I do just so we can clarify, right? I do consider it a problem when 𝕵𝖔𝖎𝖙, when a poll came out that he did not like, who ruled the tavern poll, he lied and called it funded by AIPAC. Right? When that was just not the case. AIPAC never funded that poll. But instead of, again, just saying that, hey, this poll, it came out, it was something we didn't like, and instead of saying we just got to do better, he blamed it on AIPAC. I think that's somewhat anti-Semitic, no?
I think that was definitely misstated there. However, given that AIPAC spent $32 million in that race,
yeah, but if everything that bad's happening, you're blaming on a group of Jewish people, I think we can maybe.
It's the group of Jewish people who are running against him. I feel like that's is that crazy to say?
That would be not crazy to say if it is something that they looked into and they say, okay, AIPAC did fund this or did fund this ad. I think that'd be fine. But when you're blaming things that they had nothing to do with on AIPAC. I do find that anti-Semitic.
I think someone misstating something. If it were, I guess we would have to determine his intentions there. But going back to the whole Mamdani statement there, I'm sorry, Wick. Actually, no, I'm not. I just lied. I just think that's a really pathetic problem for Jewish people to have, right? I think that is. I think him not having a particular ethnic person as a particular job in his staff is not as big of a problem as you want to put it out to be, right? The reality is that there's genuine oppression going on within the United States. And that is not to say that there is not rampant anti-Semitism, like Hunter said, on the left and the right. But that is definitely not an example of that.
Anti-Semitic hate crimes, I believe, and I'll have to check.
But that has nothing to do with his team, though. I think that's important for us to specify, right? That has nothing to do with his team, though. And Mamdani has stated multiple times that he is not pro these things, nor does he harbor any ill will towards the Jewish people of New York City.
But you gotta admit, if even let's just say he just heard about this, right? He's scrolling through YouTube, he sees Wix TV, and he says, maybe I should hire some Jewish attorneys.
Just real quick,
fix it. That's all.
Let her finish her point to me. Then I can respond and we'll toss it to you.
Because if this is how we're going to do this, I think you are going to agree that it is asinine. Like, yes, we should expect a little bit of diversity, but it is asinine, right, to expect for like every single ethnic group to have some form of like representation within these parties, right?
I think that
I think that's ridiculous.
Well, I'll just grant you that it's not necessarily definitely anti-Semitism, but it is a question I would have. Just like, again, I would have the same question if we were going to a historically black college and none of the staff was black. It would be weird.
Right. And if it was the case,
even though it might not be the case that racism had anything to do with that, that's possible. It is worth asking the questions. Now, I agree with you that it is not the worst problem facing the Jewish community right now.
I don't even think it's a problem.
Right?
I don't think it's a problem.
If you don't think so, but I think that having opportunities for positions in traditional
but they do have opportunity for positions
in
though.
In roles that were traditionally have been traditionally.
There was a Jewish person who did have the opportunity. They just had a conflict of interest. So like what?
Sure.
Hunter already gave you this answer.
Yeah,
I know, but the fact that no Jews except for one applied also raises questions to me, right?
Hold on. Tashika, one of the points that you made, Tashika, one of the points that he made to you that you did not substantively engage with is if Jews aren't feeling safe in applying. We know there's Jewish attorneys. I have some. They're friends of mine.
He needs to justify
They would
that.
apply. Let me fucking finish. And so what they could do is, if they feel like it's going to be a hostile environment and they feel like they're hearing a lot of anti-Semitism, like, do you think that so do you think that there is pushback there, or do you think they just literally all decided they didn't want to work for the city anymore?
I think at some, well, they do want to work for the city. I don't again. I think it's
so you agree
important
they're being
that I say
pushed
this.
out
Hold
then?
on. No, I don't agree with that. 1 second, Hunter. Sorry.
Oh.
I think it's really fucking silly that the presumption of discrimination is enough for them to not apply for these jobs. You're going to have to provide some kind of justification for that, right? Because if a black person was applying for a job and they felt like there was going to be some racism there and then just didn't fucking apply because they didn't feel safe, I'm going to call that person a fucking idiot, right? Again, I would need you to justify what they were feeling, whether or not anti-Semitism is present within these spaces. There's so many things that you're going to have to prove here, and I just don't think you're going to be able to do that.
But hold on, Tashika, if I may, like, if a large group of the black community felt unsafe working with
if it was unjustified, they would be stupid.
Team, that would at least be worth investigating, yeah?
Yes, but again, where would the issue come from, though, right?
I've ceded
right,
to that.
And that's the issue. The fact, right, and the fact that you cannot
I'm bringing it up as a possibility. Again, I'm tying it as well. If I may finish real quick, just to explain, right? I'm tying it to the other problems that are going on in the left in certain spaces. One of them, again, 𝕵𝖔𝖎𝖙 is another politician. Since we don't want to deal with the cultural issues,
it just sounds like you want them to investigate feelings, and that's a waste of time.
It's not just feelings, though, right?
So then what is
opportunity?
So then
we're
they would
investigating opportunity.
Where is the evidence that they do not have the equal opportunity?
Is the most important thing here.
Go ahead, Hunter Dunn, please.
Yeah. Shouldn't we? Okay. I want to focus in on specifically actions being taken to fight hate and then get back to the actual anti-Semitism point. Okay. Because Zoran Mamdani supersized the NYC Hate Crimes Office specifically to address the rising tide of anti-Semitism, as increasing the budget from $3 million to $29 million. He was praised by Jewish groups across the political spectrum, including groups like United Jewish, progressive Zionist organizations, and even the Anti-Defamation League, which is famously not a fan of Zoran Mamdani, specifically when it comes to Israel-Palestine. This has been resoundingly praised, even by Representative Dan Goldman, whose primary challenger at the time this was passed was Brad Lander, whose popularity is directly tied to Mamdani. It is not politically advantageous for Dan Goldman or ADL or the New York Jewish Agenda, which is the name of a group, the Progressive Zionist Organization. None of these groups actually benefit from praising Mamdani on this unless they genuinely believe that this is a good step. And increasing the anti-hate crimes budget, specifically the hate crimes prevention, which is the best way to protect people. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, to quote an old truism. That is incredibly effective. To get back to the 𝕵𝖙𝖎𝖙 point, the important thing here is that AIPAC is not equivalent to the Jewish people writ large. Again, he said it seemed before that he thinks that it was funded by AIPAC, which is different than a declaration. But I would agree that there is no evidence for that claim. However, I think
I need to respond to this.
The Jewish people as a whole is a mistake in a very anti-Semitic direction.
Hunter, shut up.
Hold on. But you made a statement there that I need to contend with, right? I agree that you can be critical of AIPAC and not be anti-Semitic. However, do you not agree that a lot of people, like, I'll give you an example of AIPAC Tracker. Are you familiar with that group?
Yes.
AIPAC Tracker. I forget which way.
I have my criticisms. It's Track AIPAC.
Yeah, they changed their methodology for how they track AIPAC's money between the race of Scott Wiener and Connie Chung. I forget her name. Connie Chan.
Connie Chan.
Thank you.
I think it's Chan.
And again, Scott Wiener, who has received no AIPAC money, they marked as red because he supports the state of Israel. And Connie Chan, who has accepted AIPAC money, they put as green, right? This seems to be because Scott Wiener is
Hold on, I'm not sure you're totally correct on the facts here, because I had to look into this because I was trying to research this race. There is more to the story here. I agree with you. The Scott Wiener rating I actually heavily disagree with. But with
would you consider it anti-Semitic?
I would consider it Potentially. I would have to look into their decisions more. But
pretty
I
obviously,
I
at
was
least,
accusing
right?
them of manipulating an election, not anti-Semitic.
No, it was anti-Semitic. Look, the guy's Jewish. He doesn't support Israel. He's called it a genocide. He's done all the things that the people want, right? But he happens to be Jewish.
Hold on.
There's
There's a lot more nuance here that you are not putting into this situation. For one, Connie Chan didn't take any money from AIPAC. There are independent expenditures by groups like Elect Democratic Women or Elect Pro-Choice Women.
Yeah,
I don't remember the exact name off the top of my head.
They count that for others.
Some money that was related, that has had some overlap with AIPAC before, but you have to kind of prove the pass-through, which is hard to do. So I think that they were overzealous with the Connie Chan thing. However, I actually think that they should have maintained consistency and continued to mark Connie Chan as red, and they didn't. When it comes to Scott Wiener, though, you have to look at the actual policies and the bills that he supported and hasn't supported, because when he was asked about a genocide at a town forum in 2025, he said no and then changed his answer to yes. He has been inconsistent on the issue. I think Track AIPAC is allowed to say that they don't believe his change of stance because he was so consistently off balance on the issue. I think a fair criticism with Track AIPAC is they should have some sort of like yellow thing for in between or unsure, the way that Track Ukraine does. Dylan Burns and other people do Track Ukraine.
I'm familiar
I think Track Ukraine is a much better example. It's much less politically biased than Track AIPAC is. But I also want to be clear in this case, I think that this one's a little bit more complicated, and it's possible for reasonable minds to disagree on it. I think a much better example would be Ro Khanna being green and Jon Ossoff being red. That's one of my large criticisms. Both of them took money from J Street. However, only Jon Ossoff is red, and Ro Khanna is not. And Ro Khanna also is not exactly totally anti-genocide.
There are multiple examples that we can make of the Track AIPAC.
I think there's a real problem that we should interrogate, but I also don't think that this is I don't think this is the equivalent.
Yeah, you got to respond
here.
But just to answer your first, right, just to go back to your claim that Jewish groups praised Mamdani for raising the budget against anti-Semitic hate crime watch groups or resources to combat the rise of anti-Semitism. Is that correct? Is that a correct framing of your argument?
Yeah, hate crime prevention.
Yeah,
especially
crime prevention. Thank you.
Specifically anti-Semitic hate crime prevention. Yeah.
Did you know that there are plenty of Black advocacy groups that praised Donald Trump for his First Steps Acts? We have the 2020 Bipartisan Justice Center, the Coalition of African American Pastors, Van Jones specifically, the National Urban League. But we would never say that because they praised him for this First Steps Act, right? We would never say that Donald Trump can't be racist because they did that, right? Right? So I understand that you want to point to that. I'll let you go in a second, right? I understand you can point to that, right, as maybe evidence that they might not be, but I would say that you're leaning too heavily on it because we can point to plenty of Republicans who have, including Donald Trump, which I think we all could agree is maybe not Street Rift would agree, but I agree is pretty racist. He's a pretty racist guy, right? Yeah, but go ahead, Tashika, please.
No, I was just saying, certain Black organizations saying that Trump passed a good policy is obviously not going to be the same as saying that he's not racist. One, because we have notable history of Donald Trump being racist. We have an understanding that he does not care about minorities, specifically Black people, based upon what he has said in the past, right? What you are going off of based upon, just like even like with the Mamdani thing again, is just straight up feelings and vibes, right? But that is not civil rights. There is actual measurable harm there, other than a person's insecurities about what they think other groups might think of them. That's not the same thing. I don't know why. I don't know why we're comparing these two things like they're the same. They're not.
I think that you're correct that they are not exactly the same, but they are comparable and they do matter.
Anything's comparable. You can compare my ass to an apple.
Comparable, but more importantly, they do matter, right? If a certain minority group, such as women, felt unsafe because of certain policies or certain actions or certain statements that a specific politician has made or actions that they have taken, that is at least worth looking into. My claim is not that Mamdani is anti-Semitic. That's not my claim. I know. Right? I just want to make that clear. My claim is that some of the actions he's taken and some of the larger kind of cultural actions that seem to be growing upon the left is leading to anti-Semitic results, where Jews seem to be moved out of these communities, taken less seriously, and if they are Jewish, right, they get they are likely to have their status changed on major influential organizations such as Track AIPAC, simply because only they happen to be Jewish.
I don't think the First Step Act is a good comparison. Zoran Mamdani is the one who proposed and championed this initiative. It was not subject to city council approval. When it comes to the First Step Act, it was introduced by, correct me if I'm wrong here, but Doug Collins from Georgia, and the only original co-sponsor was 𝕾𝖍𝖎𝖙. So it was introduced by bipartisan coalition and was passed with a veto-proof majority in both the House and the Senate, 87-12, and in the House, 358-36. Not a single Democratic lawmaker voted against the bill. Trump could not veto it if he wanted to. And why would he veto something that's passed with a veto-proof majority that was going to get him praise? We all know he's a narcissist first and foremost. I would agree he's a racist, but I also don't think he's
we all know argument.
Racism. He's primarily I think you would agree with me here, Wick. He's primarily motivated by self-interest and praise, right? Like he wants to be loved.
I agree with that, but I think it would be
this is an easy way to be loved by not vetoing a veto-proof majority.
I think it's unfair to say that he didn't champion this. Like, he did not initially push it. That is correct. He was not the initial person who put it. But in 2018, on November 14th, he publicly called on Congress to pass it, endorsed the compromising, including sentencing reforms and its administration, and he worked with the senators to get it done and get it passed. Like, we have to give him his flowers on this. You are correct when I agree with you that he was mainly doing it to be praised, right? But the reason I'm bringing this up is I think that it is poor evidence that someone is or is not racist or anti-Semitic simply because certain minority groups have praised them because of their actions in the past. I don't think that's sufficient evidence to say that they are anti-Semitic or not anti-Semitic, right?
I think that there's a difference between someone proposing something before they're in office, championing it, and pushing it through once they're in office.
There is
and
a difference,
someone
but
signing on to a thing that's already
worthy
popular.
Of distinction?
Yeah. And as a secondary point, the First Step Act got significantly weakened by the Supreme Court because of a decision written by Amy Coney Barrett, one of Trump's appointees in 2021. So that's the other issue I have here.
But Trump's appointees also, homie, time out.
Of this bill. So I think that if we're giving him any credit for pushing this along, we have to give him credit for pushing along Amy Coney Barrett. And I would argue that negates the whole thing. We're back to square one with Trump. So I just don't think it's good.
Yellow flag.
If pointed out the city council members that then overturned the hate crime prevention because they all hated Jews, I think that'd be a fair comparison. But that's not what's happening.
Hunter, shut up at some point.
We are just a housekeeping thing. We are coming up on 2 hours, and so we're going to end here soon. But you had one more question, Stream Rift, and then we will get to we'll kind of close it up. And again, just to be clear, I apologize for the technical difficulties and all these things. This has been a bit of a shit show, but we get through it. Stream Rift, go ahead. The mic is yours.
Yeah. So you're talking about the Trump appointee, Amy Coney Barrett, and since this is just a orange man bad discussion, we have to view politics and have internet discourse through the lens of Trump. It can't be party specific. We can't look at the general populace. Let's look at what the Trump appointees did. Yes, Roe v. Wade got overturned. It was bad law. It should have gotten overturned. Fun side fact on that, the number of abortions in the U.S. has gone up since that, not down. So if that was an attempt to lower them, that has failed spectacularly. But more importantly, on birthright citizenship, on a number of cases, Trump's own appointees voted with their conscience, and the judges that he appointed went against him. If he was going to be putting folks on there that are just going to do his bidding, that are going to just put forth his agenda, that are just going to be a fascist, he would have picked people that would actually do what he asked them to do. But Trump trusts the American experiment, and he believes that the elected representatives and the branches need to work in the way that they're supposed to. And so look, you guys want to shit on him about the First Step Act. You want to ignore the fact that the nuclear family got destroyed in the Black community. You want to ignore a lot of stuff that the government does, and everything just has to turn into some version of, well, one-time Trump.
Look, so I'm just going to say, my kindergarten teacher used to say that you have one mouth for speaking and 2 ears for listening, and clearly you haven't been following that, because we talked about the breakdown of the nuclear family specifically with Black people and talked about how incarceration led to that. And when it comes to ignoring Supreme Court
you're
rulings,
completely wrong about that.
No one would agree with Donald Trump is the one ignoring his own Supreme Court rulings. On August 6th, President Trump issued 2 executive orders aimed at limiting birthright citizenship under certain circumstances and ending birth tourism, in direct contravention to the actual rulings of the Supreme Court this past year, right? And if you're going to talk about the Supreme Court and decisions that Trump has actually respected, then we have to go back to Louisiana versus Calais. And the result there was the ending of a series of important civil rights protections for Black people. And also, if we're talking about Trump, which is, again, you say you want to get away from it, but you're the one talking about it, you haven't addressed anything to do with the danger for women and girls to be around Donald Trump or some of his preferred congressional members, including Max Miller, or former Congressman Matt Gaetz, who was... Do we want to just get into why he got dropped from being Attorney General nomination?
Matt Gaetz? I'm not defending Matt Gaetz even in jest, okay? He's
I know, Wick. I'm sorry.
No, Hunter, I think you're genuinely useless to discuss things with. That's my takeaway from this discussion.
Jesus Christ.
Okay. We are going to wrap it up. I think that's a good note to end on. I want to give.
Can I just say one last?
Well, I'm going to give you a whole closing statement. I'm going to give everyone a chance to have closing thoughts on the subject and shout themselves out. And remember, if you liked any of these individuals, the links to their stuff is in my YouTube description. We're not ending the stream after I let them go. I have a few things to talk about with my chat, right? And you guys are free to stay if you want, I guess. But if you have to go, I understand. But if you like the stream, if you enjoyed what we do, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, send me some super chats. We'll be reading these after the show, right? We'll get into it. I'm going to let Tashika have the first word and Hunter Dunn have the last word, and we'll just go through that. Tashika, go ahead. Close us out.
Yeah, I just think this conversation went exactly as I thought it would. I was really hoping that it wouldn't be so Black-centric, but it seems like that's what conservatives always care about the most. Other than like other groups who are like actively dying and going through genocides, etc. I think one last thing on the like anti-Semitism point on the left. I think, yes, it is a problem, but I think we should be looking at people like Donald Trump and his anti-Semitic statements. The fact that he hangs out with people like Nick Fuentes or Candace Owens or Tucker Carlson, all of these people who are proudly anti-Semitic people. I think when the president is around these types of people and finds their rhetoric to be permissible, or at the very least does not condemn their rhetoric, we see that, you know, there is a level of normalization that occurs amongst like the average people, right? Especially amongst his base when he allows that. And that allows for certain ideologies and belief systems to permeate general society. But yeah, I wish we could have gotten more into other groups other than mine, but I think it just went exactly how I thought it would.
Well, thanks for being here. I do
Thank
really
you for having me up
appreciate
here though, quick.
Again, sorry for the tech stuff. I think it made it a little worse than I would like, but I had fun, and I'm glad you had fun too. I hope you had fun too, I should say. Streamrift, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll just So the prompt was which party's better for minorities. I'm just going to point to I had 7 points coming into this. I'll reiterate 2 of them. 1, armed minorities are harder to oppress. Republicans are in support of personal firearm ownership. One of the things that helped keep slaves back was they were not permitted to having firearms. I think firearm ownership for minorities is treated as equally as it is for any other group, and isn't that wonderful? And then just the second point is when we're looking at long-lasting prosperity, we're looking at businesses, we're looking at communities, we're looking at those things. The Republican answer to how we solve the economic problem is to reward investors that invest in small businesses that are successful, which creates long-lasting financial stability for communities and creates tax revenue and creates job opportunities and helps support American innovation. The alternative is the Democrat solution, which is to fund money into programs that, for example, dumped $42.5 billion into rural broadband and then delivered internet to 0 people. Musk has already solved this problem. The amount of money that we could have taken from that and directed it to any favorite lefty cost is quite significant. $42 billion could have funded a lot of healthcare, lunch programs, all of these wonderful community centers. We could have done almost anything under the sun and it would have been more useful, but we will still have folks like Tashika who will apologize for the institution and say we should trust it. It's doing a good job. We should empower. Thank you, Wick. Always a pleasure.
Thank you for being here. Hunter Dunn, last words.
Yeah. First, thank you for having us on. Thank you for the audience for watching. Also, thank you to Dr. Rippey, who is no longer here. I actually appreciated a lot of the insights that you were trying to bring, even if I disagreed with you on most of the points. I actually felt like we had some really productive conversation right before Elon Musk's famous Starlink gave out on you in mid-reign. When it comes to the positions 𝕶𝖍 talked about defending, the one that he had the best shot at defending was the Starlink one, but unfortunately his buddy undermined him there. When it comes to every other issue, both the ones that we talked about, including incarceration of Black people, voting rights, talked about rights for minorities in general, and things that we didn't cover because the right didn't want to talk about it, including severe allegations of abuse on the right wing, and whether we're talking about Dennis Hastert, convicted pedophile, or we're talking about other members of the Trump administration, including Trump's own drawing of a prepubescent or pubescent girl that he gave directly to his close personal friend for 10 years, Jeffrey Epstein. Republicans have done a terrible job of protecting minority rights because they're not interested in protecting minority rights. If they were interested in protecting minority rights, they wouldn't be going after people using ICE, giving it a $70 billion slush fund, and then arresting and detaining people, over 70% of which don't have a criminal record, and many of those that do having violations akin to traffic stops. So at the end of the day, I came into this trying to understand how this would be a debate, and I leave this still wondering how this is possibly a debate. But I hope some people got the chance to learn something, or at least have a laugh at us trying to do our best in between the pretty funny stream delays that were happening. So once again, thank you guys for watching.
No, yeah, thank you for watching. I appreciate you all for being here. Gang, wow, this has been a... Look, we do our best. When there's little you can do what little you can. Tech is going to override any kind of anything that I can do. I apologize, 𝕶𝖍, that your partner... I couldn't.
It's all good. It's all good.
Nothing I can do. Just also to let the audience know. Well, I guess first of all, you guys are free if you need to go, right? Like you can flee if you'd like. If you'd like to stay, it's fine. Some of you don't understand what a steel man is. Okay, I'm gonna yell at my audience a bit. Okay, some of you don't understand when I said, okay, I'm gonna jump into the debate. I'm going to argue a point and steel man it. Right? That does not mean I actually hold the position that I am steel manning. I am arguing from a position of someone who believes that the right is better for minorities than the left. That means I will take positions that I don't actually hold. Now, to be clear, when it comes to anti-Semitism, I do think that's a huge problem on the left, right? Now, do I think that the right is worse? Yes, I do. All right, but I wasn't arguing from that perspective, okay? So keep that in mind. Let's read some super chats together. Why don't we? Yeah, see what people have.
But yeah, well, boys, it's been great. I think I'm gonna head out. Again, you guys can find me at 𝕶𝖍𝖎 on Twitter. I'm not saying X. Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, everything. You can find me over there. Also on Substack as well. I wrote like 2 articles. But yeah, you can find me by the same name on every single platform. Thank you so much, Wick, for having me on here. And Hunter, thank you again for being my teammate. It's been a joy. Thank you so much, guys. I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.
Girl Scout.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you again. Okay,
Fuck
I
you,
will say, y'all, Hunter, bro, you were interrupting Tashika almost as much as the other side.